On good mornings, Olivia woke before the city, before the garbage trucks and the horns and the million tiny betrayals of another workday. She liked the pause, the sheer unoccupied quiet of 4:47 a.m., when even the doorman slept behind his desk and the hallway lights hummed like a lullaby. In that soundless space, she felt like a secret, herself, before the world touched her. She lived on the 12th floor of a narrow, clean building in Tribeca with a fire escape no one used and a view that made the rent feel like a ransom note. Her apartment wasn't much, but she had made it beautiful in the way young women do when they are terrified of becoming invisible. Tall eucalyptus branches in an amber bottle. A single antique mirror with a gilt frame salvaged from a flea market in Chelsea. White sheets washed each Sunday, crisp and honest. On the dresser, a chipped porcelain tray held a small, organised universe, bracelets, a signet ring that had been her grandfather's, and her watch, the one gift she'd allowed herself after graduating. Slim, silver, stubbornly timeless. In the kitchen, she set water to boil and watched the bouncy pre-boil. Those patient, widening eyes, the way surface tension pretended it could hold. She measured out grounds with the economy of someone who'd learned that precision is a kind of hope. Coffee was a ritual. The cup warmed her hands. She stood barefoot at the window and took that first holy sip as the eastern edge of Manhattan admitted the possibility of morning. Her breath fogged the glass. The sky made slow decisions. She ran. She kept her sneakers by the door, laces tucked, a habit she'd inherited from her father. "You don't let small things trip you," he'd say, a little proud and a little nervous for her. She ran along the West Side Highway where the river scrolled beside her, low and pewter, and the wind carried the smell of iron and wet rope. She ran like she was willing a life into shape, head up, arms clean, heart steady. The bridge lights faded. The city yawned awake. On her wrist, the watch ticked. 5 miles, then home. A shower hot enough to erase a thought. Moisturizer. Mascara, minimal, like a whisper. A soft brown pencil drawn close to the lash line, the gentlest definition. The hair she never quite managed but always tried. Every woman carries a small disbelief about her own face. She chose a black dress today, structured, capped sleeves, efficient, and a camel coat that was, in a word, forgiving. Forgiving of weather, of bad coffee, of weeks that took more than they returned. Her phone lit with the list she made each night. Markets open green. Call Mom, check in on Dad's knee. Email Tariq about the coverage list. Rework the macro deck. Break in the new heels on the walk to Chambers Street. Buy more oat milk. Don't forget the letter to Aunt B. The letter was important. Aunt B saved everything. Birthday cards, movie stubs, the occasional furious napkin scribble, and wrote letters like a second conscience. Romance, she'd said, in the last one, is not a miracle. It's a discipline. It's daily bread. Olivia read romance because it was the only genre brave enough to insist on softness in a world that worshipped speed. On the subway, she folded into a seat with a dog-eared paperback, always a paperback, and let herself believe again. People pretended romance was about flowers and dress sizes and ridiculous misunderstandings that lasted 200 pages. But she knew it was about tenderness as survival, about choosing to stay when it was easier to go. She underlined sentences like prayers. She underlined women who were allowed to be angry and gentle at once. The one train arrived as if surprised to be needed. She stepped inside. Elbows, backpacks, that specific metallic breath that is both train and history. She tucked the book away because there were only so many ways to be vulnerable on public transit, and she'd tried most of them. Work was a building that had polished its surfaces until they forgot they were stone. It rose over the Hudson like a dare, reflective, in love with its own reflection. The lobby smelled faintly of chilled roses and toner. The elevator mirrored everyone back to themselves, a quick audit of posture and ambition. She watched the floors blink and made herself taller. Each day she decided who to be. Each day she chose, and the choosing took something, and she loved that too. Her badge unlocked the 27th floor. Equities, macro, 2 men asleep upright at their desks under a bloom of monitors that pulsed with futures. She was not important yet. She was a beginning, a sharp pencil, a mind that liked puzzles and disliked being wrong. The desk lead liked her because she did not flinch from grunt work. She opened spreadsheets that groaned beneath formulas and rewired them so they sang. She pulled data until the data confessed. She took notes at meetings where men used the word magnitude like a muscle and described risk as though it were a cashier they could charm. At 7:12, she slipped on her headset. "Good morning, this is Olivia Sinclair," she said every time, as though that was something she could hand to the world that the world would want. She was asked for things, a chart, a pool, a precedent. She could provide all of those. What she could not provide yet was the way the room changed when she spoke. That would come. If she wanted it, and she did. Her friends said she had everything lined up. They said it like a courtesy, like it excused their own messes. Family, yes. Her mother collected small joys the way some people collect receipts. A perfect peach, a thrifted teacup with a crack like a lightning strike, the laugh Olivia had at 8 and never quite outgrew. Her father had come from not much and made something that stayed made. They were good to each other in the ordinary ways that make extraordinary things possible. Friends, yes. The kind who would show up on moving day and scratch their forearms carrying your couch and laugh about the pizza being mostly crust and all of it exactly fine. The kind who would text simply "alive" on the days when time felt like a hallway that went nowhere. A start to a career, yes. The start was enough. It hummed. It promised and withheld. It smelled like printer heat and fresh money. Everything but love. The phrase had sounded arrogant until she wore it long enough that it loosened at the seams. She did not mean the absence of men. Men had filled the past few years like weather, some sticky, dragging months that would not change no matter the sky, some quick storms, 1 or 2 beautiful afternoons. But always there had been a point where she felt them recede. They saw something about her that made them think she was already contained, already complete. The truth was simpler and clumsier. She led with competence because competence couldn't break her heart. She'd tried, honestly. Apps until the swiping felt like sanding her own fingerprints down. A meet-cute in a bookstore that turned out to be a man who photographed his own jawline more than he looked at her. The friend of a friend who called her intense like she'd confessed to a crime. The colleague who asked if she'd read Talib and then loudly did not listen to her answer. She kept a list on the back page of a notebook titled "Reasons It Didn't Work" and then crossed it out, retitled it "Lessons" and then crossed that out too. Not everything had to be useful. Some things were just experience that hurt. At lunch, she ate at her desk and read 3 pages of her book and let herself feel 16 and ridiculous again. In the afternoon, she built a model that assumed the market would relent and pretended that was not also how she lived. A senior trader stopped behind her chair, left hand on her desk, the other hand in his pocket, like he couldn't quite commit to being either present or polite. "You're Sinclair," he said, as if she might not be. "Yes." "Where are you from?" "Rhode Island." "Cute," he said, and she smiled in a way that was both strategic and true. Home was a small state that taught her how to leave without needing much. By 5:30, the floor loosened. Laughter rose, unbuttoned. Someone popped a can. A playlist argued with itself, Motown, then EDM, then a girl voice, singing like she'd never been lied to. Olivia washed her mug and lined it upside down on the drying rack and touched the lip of it like a small goodbye. She worked another hour because she liked the way the building emptied, the way night and numbers made a quiet coalition. She emailed herself the deck with the subject line, "Sinclair, do not forget." Like she was both boss and assistant, which, in the beginning, you are. Outside, the light had gone violet. She bought oranges from a street vendor who called her sweetheart without trying to own the word. She took the long way to the subway along Vesey, then Greenwich, where the bakery windows glowed like promises. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "Drinks tonight? You're too pretty to be this responsible." Olivia smiled, typed a reply, "Can do 8, then backspaced it all and sent, "Yes." At home, she opened the window and let the room breathe. She peeled an orange with her thumbs, felt the oil mist her wrists. She thought about the love she wanted and tried to describe it to herself without language that had been sold to her at 17. Not rescue, not worship, not the drama of martyrdom. She wanted a long conversation that never ran out. She wanted the look across the room that says, "I know the joke you didn't tell." She wanted a hand at the back of her neck when she was brave, and when she wasn't. She wanted the ordinary miracle of being chosen on a Tuesday. She showered and stood in the too white towel, hair up, the soft ache in her calves that said she had a body and it had moved through a day. She picked a dress the colour of wine and then, embarrassed by her own romance about it, changed to a sweater and dark jeans. At the mirror she considered her mouth, the way it hinted at smirks, and then put on the red lipstick anyway because she liked the way it announced a woman who might take up space. The bar was in the West Village, all candlelight and impossible men. It had a name that sounded like it wanted to be said in a whisper. Mia had a corner table and a face that made people confess things. "You are luminous," Mia declared, as if this were a truth to be notarized. "I hate that for you here. I could smudge my mascara." "You could," Mia said, "but then you'd look like a girl who believes in things, and God forbid." They clinked glasses, something with mint in it that insisted on summer against the window's October. They talked work in the shorthand of women who had learned to be their own mentors. They talked mothers, brothers, an aunt with a lover everyone pretended not to know about. They orbited love and then entered it. "So," Mia's smile was soft, not surgical. "Any luck?" "Define luck." "The kind that makes your chest artisanal." Olivia glanced at the bar. A man in a navy suit was laughing with his head tipped back like a prom picture. Another man checked his reflection in his phone, then looked at the women around him as if choosing from a menu he did not intend to pay for. A third stirred his drink, slow, like he liked the sound. "I went on a date last week," she said. "He told me he loved Dostoevsky. Danger. And then he asked if I'd ever been to Europe because I have, and I quote, 'that vibe.'" "What vibe?" "Apparently the vibe of a person who understands the concept of a train." Mia pressed her mouth into her glass to keep from laughing too loudly. And he said he wasn't intimidated by my job, which means he was. And that he liked women who could hang, which means he wanted a beer that was also a person. Olivia shrugged, a small lift of the left shoulder, a gesture she had learned from watching women pretend disappointment weighed nothing. He was kind. It wasn't unkind. It just wasn't. Mia's face softened. "The click." "The click," Olivia echoed. "Or the ache. Or the—" She made a shape with her hands, a slow opening as if demonstrating a tide. They stayed until the candles grew small puddles of gold, and the waitress began to stack the coasters with apologetic efficiency. They promised things to each other that felt like vows. "Text me when you get in," and meant them the way women mean care without needing to make it into ceremony. Outside, the air had acquired a fine edge. Olivia tucked her chin into her sweater and walked toward the train with the feeling you get when you've been looked at by someone who loves you. Lighter, truer, the city briefly less interested in being hard. Down the station stairs, past the buskers and the two teenagers, performing a heartbreak so operatic, it made her nostalgic for a pain she hadn't had. The platform was its usual blunt congregation, She took the book out. Tonight, the heroine wore boots and could read a wind like a map. She lost herself for 4 stops, then 5. When she glanced up at the window beyond her own reflection, she saw, for a second, a man on the opposite platform watching his watch with an intensity that tugged at her. The train moved. He vanished. At home, she kicked off her shoes and lay on the couch and set the book on her chest like a weight she was willing to carry. Her phone lit with a message from her mother. "Call me tomorrow morning, sweetheart. Not urgent. Just want to hear your voice." There was a second text, 2 minutes later. "Your aunt sent you something. It should be there by Friday. It's from one of her markets. Probably nonsense, but she says it's for your future." 3 heart emojis. A peach. The mother code for "I love you more than the world, and also please eat." Olivia laughed, and the sound echoed in the little place she had made into a home. She stared up at the ceiling, the small cracks that made delicate star maps if you were generous. She thought of Friday, the way packages make even grown women feel like altar girls. She thought of Aunt B, who believed in trinkets that carried stories inside them like seeds. She let the softness of the night settle on her like a second, warm skin. She promised herself she would not check email. She checked email. The deck was fine. The model held. The world might not fall apart tomorrow. She put the phone face down as if that were a moral act. In the kitchen, she poured water and drank it, knowing it would not make her a better person, but pretending it might. She brushed her teeth and smeared the red lipstick across a tissue and looked for a long moment at her mouth without it. There was a tenderness there she did not always allow herself. In bed, she read one more chapter. The lovers were cruel to each other in the way people are when they are terrified of being known. She underlined a sentence she'd seen 100 times and underlined again because repetition can be a devotion. She turned off the light. The city kept breathing without her. Sleep came like a curtain, slow, heavy, unquestioning. And in that first soft plunge, the space between the day she'd lived and the day she would wake into, she dreamed, not of a face, not yet, but of a room with tall windows and a desk near the glass, a ledger open like a wound, and a man's hand hovering over a page as if deciding whether to sign his name. She would not remember this in the morning. She would remember a heaviness in her throat, like a word she hadn't learned yet. At 4:47 a.m., the watch on her dresser ticked. Somewhere, in a different century that kept its own grudges, a different watch ticked back. For now, Olivia slept, wrapped in the comfort of the life she'd made, not yet suspecting that the box on her doormat on Friday would carry a hinge, and that the hinge would open a door, and that the door would not care about time. But that was later. For now, a beginning. A woman who had everything going for her, but love. A city that forgave her for wanting both. And the quiet, faithful hours before morning when, if you listened carefully, you could hear the way the future rearranged its furniture to make room. Chapter 2, Benson. Before the fall. He woke to dark that wasn't quiet. Manhattan in 1929 never truly slept. It turned its face to the pillow and muttered numbers. Freight whistles stitched the dawn together. Somewhere a bakery shoveled heat into the city's cold stomach. In his room off Gramercy, Benson Pratt lay still and counted the seconds between the soft clicks inside his pocket watch. He had trained himself to know 60 by sound. He trusted things he could audit. The watch had been his father's. Gold, thin as a good argument, with a hairline crack on the enamel face like a white river frozen mid-bend. BP, engraved on the back, in a hand that had believed in heirs. He kept it 13 minutes fast on purpose, a superstition disguised as efficiency. When the world reached for him, he had already moved. He rose before the bell at Trinity and lit the lamp on his desk. The ledger waited, columns ruled so straight they felt moral. He wrote the date, September 17th, 1929, in the top right corner, And then the verbs that ran his life: owed, owing, settled. He didn't write hope. Hope was a liar. His rooms were tidy without tenderness. A bed you could bounce a coin on. 2 suits pressed so sharply they could threaten a man. A small tray with cufflinks that looked like little moons. On the mantel, a photograph of his parents, not because he needed the past, but because he had the manners to acknowledge it. His father, that slow, competent smile. His mother, jaw set like she didn't trust the camera to remember her correctly. He ate as if nutrition were a contract. Porridge, coffee, black as policy. He read the Times and underlined nothing. He shaved the way he traded, decidedly with the blade held at a practiced angle. He put on the suit that made him longer and less reachable, and the hat that told the street he had somewhere to be that was not it. The day opened its doors. Fifth Avenue polished itself to a shine, carriages giving way to Packards and men with shoulders hungry for influence. Near Broad and Wall, you could smell money if you knew how. Ink, metal, the human electricity of wanting. The Exchange was a red mouth that swallowed noise. Benson didn't go onto the floor. He'd outgrown that theatre. He kept an office 2 blocks away with tall windows and a view that made him feel like a lens. Inside, 2 clerks, 3 telephones, 4 chairs, and 1 set of principals. He had done something that made other men call him lucky and made him careful about whom to correct. He'd multiplied the family's fortune by a factor that changed the way rooms looked at him. 20-fold. Not because he loved risk, because he loved systems, and he loved finding the place where a system stuttered. He'd seen it in 27 with the rails, the same in 28 with motors and the silly new radio companies that believed enthusiasm was a revenue stream. He did not worship at the altar of up. He knew gravity personally. His clerks, Harlan with the nimble pencil, Stein with the memory that could keep 2 tickers and a prayer going at once, looked up when he entered. "Morning, Mr. Pratt." "Good morning," he said, and it came out like a policy enacted. He took off his hat, set its brim up on the rack, opened the window 1 inch because air mattered more than any of them admitted, and wound the watch until it resisted. He liked that resistance. He understood it. He wound himself that way. Calls began. A mill in Lowell that wanted to roll forward a position it did not have the stomach to close. A banker who spoke like a man walking down an icy step, 1 careful foot at a time. A boy of 22 with a family name like a marble courthouse, trusting that name would pay margin forever. Benson's voice was a winter river, fast, cold, committed to direction. "You cannot convince a price to love you," he told the boy. There was a pause on the line. "Sir?" "Sell half," Benson said. "You can keep your illusions with the other half." He hung up to the staccato of the ticker, that little metal heart narrating the city. He ran numbers until the numbers gave up their disguises. He spotted where leverage fattened men's courage and counted days forward to where their courage would cost them. He wasn't cruel. He was accurate. Accuracy feels like cruelty to those who wanted the world gentler. He ate at his desk, a sandwich so spare it was a confession, and let his eye catch on the corner of his ledger where he'd written, months ago, a line he didn't remember thinking. Time is a ledger. Love is the entry that refuses to balance. He'd left it there on purpose. He needed reminding that sentimentality is just debt by a prettier name. Had he ever been in love? He did not lie to himself for sport. There had been a girl in 25, Lila Harrow with ink-stained fingers, who filed in the mornings and read Zola at lunch like a dare. She laughed as if she were trying to break open the sky. He had let her go the way one lets go of a stock that charms and underperforms. Not because he'd wanted to, because he'd wanted something else more. He told himself that monasticism and ambition were synonyms. Sometimes it even felt true. At 3, the wind changed. Not outside. The sky was a polite October blue. Inside the market, breath went short. The tape hesitated as if remembering a word. Call money rates had been climbing like an insult. The boy with the marble courthouse name called back, and his voice had picked up an extra frequency, panic's thin whistle. Benson moved through his positions the way a surgeon moves through a room where the blood refuses to answer to gauze. He had hedges, not enough to make him invincible, enough to make him honest. At 6, he locked the ledger. He kept no speakeasy in his pocket, no appointment with laughter. The city after hours belonged to men who could afford to forget themselves. He had made himself by remembering. He walked up Broadway with his hat brim low and his hands in his pockets, and took a detour he did not take. Habit is a second skeleton. He surprised his. The detour ended at a small jeweller's on University, the sort of place where the proprietor knew the dreams of men who pretended not to dream. In the window, along with opera glasses and a forgetful brooch, lay a pocket watch that had belonged to someone's father who had not believed in heirs. Not gold, silver, its shine gone soft with time. A feminine watch. The face was clean, the second hand precise as a promise. He didn't know why he went in. He disliked not knowing why. "Evening," the jeweller said, looking at Benson's suit and deciding on a price. "I want to buy the watch," Benson said, and even he heard the uncharacteristic speed. "For yourself, sir?" "No." The word came out with the bluntness of an apple thrown instead of offered. "For—" He could not say. He did not know. The blankness irritated him. He reached for certainty the way other men reached for flask. "For a gift." "To whom shall I inscribe it?" Benson almost said, "No inscription." Then he thought of how many objects survive and forget. He thought of his father's initials carved into a metal back like a small declaration that he had existed at all. "BP," he said. He stopped. He shook his head. "No, not mine." He surprised himself again and did not flinch. "Right, make time honest." The jeweller raised a single brow, a small duet of skepticism and respect. "A creed." "A request," Benson said. "Wrap it carefully." He paid cash with a face that did not discuss money, pocketed the box, left into the early dark. He told himself it would be for his sister, Eleanor, who collected small ticking things and squealed when a package had weight. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself so often he almost believed it. Back home, he set the new watch beside his own on the desk, the two faces side by side like a before and after advert for the same life. He listened to them tick together. Then, strangely, not together. For a fraction of a second, the beat staggered. The room altered, just a degree. The lamp guttered as if the air had been asked a difficult question. He lifted the silver watch. The second hand shivered. A smell rose, not of oil or metal, but rain on hot stone. He closed his eyes against a dizziness that had no cause in blood sugar or whiskey. In the blank behind his lids he saw, not a figure, but the shape a figure would make against a window, modern glass, with the city poured into it. He opened his eyes and the moment was gone, like a train that had not stopped for him. He swallowed the embarrassment of his own heart. He wrote a receipt. He wrote a note to Eleanor and placed it under the box. For when you want to hear what you already know. He could not bear to write love. He was a language born of exact words. He blew out the lamp. In the dark, the two watches went on, the duet so quiet you could nearly convince yourself you had imagined the harmony. He slept hard. He did not dream. Or if he did, he refused to remember. Chapter 3. A package and an hour you can't explain. Friday unfurled like silk across a blade. Olivia found the box at her door when she went out to run. Brown paper, twine tied in a human bow, Aunt Bee's exuberant cursive, the bee of B doing what it always did, looping like it was laughing. She didn't pick it up. She ran first. Ritual makes everything else truer. When she came back, pink-cheeked with river air salted into her hair, She set the box on the counter and stood looking at it, smiling at how packages do the cheap magic of childhood. She made coffee, let herself consider the pleasure of untying something someone knotted for you. Inside, tissue paper that had loved other presents before, a note on Aunt B's stationery, lemons in the corners, and the old-fashioned habit of underlining instead of italicizing. Found this at the Saturday market in Rhinebeck. The woman who sold it had 10 rings and the certainty of a saint. "This one is for a girl who lives on time," she said. "And I thought of you. It's probably nonsense. Or it's the start of a story. Either way, for your future. Aunt B." Beneath the paper, a small box the colour of quiet. She opened it as if alarm might be inside. The watch lay in its bed like something that had known wrists that were not hers. Silver, soft with its own history. The second hand was lean and sure. On the back, engraved, "Make time honest." Olivia did what she always did when the world surprised her tenderly. She laughed, and then felt tears press from behind the laugh, as if trying to get a better view. "Aunt B," she said out loud, as if the apartment could carry the message the way a telegraph did. "You menace!" She lifted the watch. It was cool at first, then warm as if owning the right to her pulse. The weight felt declarative without being heavy. When she brought it close to her ear, it ticked with the bored confidence of a metronome. But then, just once, she swore it hesitated. A tiny stutter, a gap, an arrhythmia like a secret knocked into the back of a closet. She pressed the indent at the crown, and the face flicked open. No hidden locket, no miniature portrait. Just the spare elegance of machinery that believed in itself. She turned it in her hand and noticed the faintest hairline crack across the enamel. Barely there, like a healed scar. She leaned into the window to see it. The city behind the glass made itself a blur. There was paper at the bottom of the box, folded down to the size of a thumb. She snapped it open with the careful ruthlessness of curiosity. Not a letter, an old ledger slip, torn clean along the top. Numbers in ink, brown, with the honesty of age. September. 17, 1929. Positions balanced, remember. You cannot convince a price to love you. BP. The initials made her mouth go dry. She had never met a BP who wrote like a person who didn't have time to lie. She held the scrap up, and sunlight made the old fibres glow. On impulse, on a muscle impulse as automatic as checking a mirror, she set the paper behind the watch face. The two belonged beside each other the way words belonged beside a mouth that would say them. She laughed to herself. She wasn't a heroine in one of her paperbacks. She was a woman in a kitchen with oat milk and emails and a useless crush on the idea that some things are meant. She texted a photo to Aunt B. "You wizard. It's beautiful. It says make time honest, 3 dots. Then, I knew it. Also the woman said we should both wear red lipstick today." Gate 6, Olivia propped the watch on the windowsill and turned to rinse her cup. The room, something in it, shifted. A single, inexplicable shiver ran up her spine, the way cold sometimes does in August. Quick, undeniable, not interested in her opinion. She turned back. The second hand jumped, not forward. It paused and then ran fast to catch itself up. The light at the window dimmed, not darker but older, like someone had turned down the electricity in history. "Earthquake," she said to the empty, ridiculous. The kettle sat polite and still. The building did not creak. The doorman downstairs would not have tolerated the weather behaving badly without comment. She touched the watch again. Warm, now, with something that felt like ownership. She held it in her palm and, ridiculous, more ridiculous, go all the way. She closed her eyes. Not a vision, not a ghost. A room. The first impression, handmade, tall windows, a desk near the glass, the smell of pencil and tobacco without the smoke, a neatness that had scrubbed itself into dignity. And then, jawline, hat on a peg, a man standing very still the way men do when they have taught their bodies not to shake, even when the inside of them is already an argument. She opened her eyes to her own reflection in the window. The city returned, modern and economical, offended at being asked to be mystical this early. "Okay," she said, to herself, to the quiet eggshell walls, to the bit of sky that looked less sure of itself than usual. "We're not telling anyone about that." She dressed for work with the sensation of a sentence she couldn't recall hovering at the edges like someone waiting to be remembered. She slipped the watch into her coat pocket because leaving it on the sill felt like abandonment, because wearing it on the chain felt like costume, because pocketing it felt like confession. It fit there with the clean intimacy of a hand in the right hand. The day did its day thing. She checked futures and pretended she didn't care if they liked her. The team ran through the macro deck, and the head of the desk asked the sort of question that figures out how much fear is in the room. She answered with a clarity that startled her. The clarity felt borrowed. She sent the deck. She took a call where a client talked for 7 minutes and said only his own name in different tones. She ate almonds like a woman trying to be kind to a body that ferried her everywhere. At noon, Mia slid into her chair with scandal in her eyes, like a cat bringing you a mouse. "You look like you slept with a secret," she said, impressed. "I slept with 8 hours. Which is more subversive?" Mia held up a paper bag. "I brought you a cookie the size of a mistake." Olivia took the bag and did the bow of someone accepting an award on behalf of cookies everywhere. "My aunt sent me a thing this morning," she said, casually, like it wasn't the only thing she'd wanted to say since coffee. "An antique watch." "Pretty. A bit—" She searched for a word that meant fate without sounding like she'd subscribed to a weekly horoscope. "Loaded." "Loaded?" "It says, make time honest." She heard herself and knew her face was doing sincerity at an illegal wattage. And there was a little note inside from someone, dated 1929. She told herself she would not say his initials. She made her mouth disobey. B.P. Hot. "It's paper," Olivia said, "not a man." Mia tilted her head, examining Olivia like a jeweller holding a stone to the light. "It's possible," she said, "that you're the only person alive who could make an antique into a flirtation." She grinned. "I love that about you." In the afternoon, the building warmed to the sun and then soured toward 4. She made a small error that no one but her would notice and corrected it as if it were a character flaw. She stood to refill her water bottle and the watch in her pocket shifted, the chain catching on her thumbnail. The edge of the ledger slipped inside. She had tucked it there, superstitious as a child with a talisman. Pricked her. Paper cut. Not much. Enough to remember. On the way home, the city decided to be cinematic. October can do that when it wants. Long light. The sound of someone practicing a saxophone on a second floor. A dog with the same bad haircut as its owner. She walked. The watch in her pocket made itself known with small, intimate taps against her thigh. When she reached her building and the elevator was out again, she climbed 12 floors and arrived at her door with the good ache of earned breath. She set the watch back on the windowsill, a little altar, now whether she liked it or not. She texted Aunt B a picture of it catching the last light. Aunt B wrote back, "Put it on your nightstand tonight." Why? Because I like to be right about small things. Olivia laughed and obeyed. She cooked something simple and green that would make her mother proud. She read 3 chapters where 2 people were trying not to say the same thing in different words. She showered. The day washed off like chalk dust. She put the watch on the nightstand. At 2:11 a.m, she woke. Not fully. The way you wake when a room makes a decision without you and your body files an objection. The watch ticked. And then, very softly, as if from another room entirely, a room with tall windows and a man who believed in columns, she heard a radio murmur. Not a song. A voice talking about prices like weather. She opened her eyes into her own century, The dark had the familiar shapes she paid rent for. The watch, on the table, gleamed a little like a polite animal. She rolled toward it without deciding to, and held it in both hands the way you hold a child's head, as if honouring the danger of gentleness. "Make time honest," she whispered. Maybe to herself, maybe to the past, maybe to the future that was waiting just off stage, checking its hair in the mirror, deciding whether to enter. She slept again. Easier this time. Somewhere downtown, the market made plans to be cruel on Monday. Somewhere uptown, in a room that kept its ledgers close, a man rolled onto his side and placed his hand flat on the desk the way a believer touches the rail at church. Neither of them knew each other, not yet. But the wheel had begun to bite the rail, and once a wheel bites a rail, the only thing left is the ride. Chapter 4. The noise between seconds. Saturday granted her permission to be human. Olivia slept past the sacred 4:47 and woke to light already insisting on itself. The room was warm from the radiator's uneven kindness. For a moment she couldn't place the weight on her nightstand. Then the watch resolved, small and certain, a silver moon in daylight. She lay there and catalogued the aches and not aches. Calves agreeable, heart steady, the mind a little jangly, like a guitar no one had tuned yet. She reached for the watch and felt that quiet intimacy again, how the metal learned her temperature and returned it. She listened. Tick, tick, tick. No radio voice this time, no masculine murmur about prices, just the metronome of living. Coffee, then phone. Her mother had sent a photo of the backyard in Rhode Island, maples loud with red. "Come home next weekend. We'll buy cider and argue about pie crust like decent people." Olivia typed back, "Yes," then added a heart, because she was not too proud for sincerity. She considered texting Mia about the watch, about the not quite hallucination. She typed, "Weird thing. Last night I heard a radio through the 1920s watch." She watched the sentence on her screen like a fish you're not sure you want to throw back. She deleted it. Not because she didn't trust Mia, because she wanted to keep the strangeness unhandled. There are experiences that die when translated too early. She showered, pulled on a sweater the colour of stormwater, jeans, boots that could apologise if they stepped on a toe. She dropped the watch into her coat pocket with the care of tucking in a child. The sky wore a thin, honest blue. October had stopped flirting and committed to chill. She walked south without a thesis and let the city select her. The Strand was busy in the way only a myth can be. Tourists photographing spines, men in flannel announcing their discernment with tote bags, a girl sitting cross-legged on the floor as if an aisle were a rite. Olivia drifted to the stacks that always took her in. Women who refused to be small. Stories where longing was not a pathology but a practice. On a lower shelf, spine fugitive, she found a slim volume with a title that felt like a dare. Markets and Men, 1928. Brown cloth, frayed as a worry. She slipped it free. Inside, a library card pocket from a public branch that had probably been reborn as a juice place. A penciled name on the first page, Eleanor P. The P put a little hook behind her ribs. She bought it with an embarrassment that felt close to joy and stepped back into the honest cold. She took the long way home through Union Square where the farmers' market performed abundance and a man played a violin like he knew how to make strangers cry. A table of old jewellery was set up under an umbrella patched with duct tape, and the vendor, a woman whose earrings were small, silver suns, caught Olivia's glance at the watches. "You have a good eye," the woman said. "People say that when what they mean is you look like someone who wants the past to mean something." "I'm figuring out what I'm looking at," Olivia said. She described the silver watch as if she were trying not to say lover. "There's a hairline crack across the face." "Honest damage," the woman said. "Sometimes the hairline crack is what lets the light go in." She told a story about a shipping crate full of pocket watches found beneath a floorboard when a shop closed in the 40s. Everyone who tells stories about the past tells them like rumors, even when they're true. Was there a jeweler on University Place? Olivia asked. Early 20th century? The woman's mouth went sideways, thinking. There was Kagan and Son, I think. Numbered in the 80s or 90s. They did small, precise things. Opera glasses, watches. I bought a box from the grandson once. He said his grandfather engraved secrets he wasn't paid to engrave. She winked. Men like to feel like they write history on the backs of things. Olivia thanked her and walked on, feeling the world tilt, faintly, as if told a joke it wasn't finished laughing at. She stopped at University without meaning to. The ramen shop at the corner smelled like garlic and college and an ambition to be loved. She stood on the sidewalk and looked at the glass as if it could remember. Wind moved her hair. The watch in her pocket ticked with its habitual arrogance. For a breath, just one, she saw a narrower storefront where the glass was wavy with age and the bell above the door believed in announcing people. Then it was ramen again. Steam. A kid slurping like salvation. She laughed at herself and touched the pocket knife of the past folded into her coat. Back home, she put the book and the watch on the table and made a sandwich that had the integrity of salt. She opened Markets and Men and found the chapter on cool money rates, which was exactly as sexy as it sounded, and somehow still thrilled her. She liked the swindle and ethics of numbers. Halfway through, a page surrendered a paper, another card, fallen inside, when the library closed its hands. On it, the neat hand of a girl who'd known the correct way to make a B, Eleanor, returned to Benson after supper. He says, "Do not be sentimental about prices. He is insufferable when right." M. Her mouth went dry again, the way it had with the ledger slip. The names sat together on the page like a reunion. Eleanor. Benson. There was a third initial, M, that felt like a lamp no one had lit yet. She felt a strand being thrown across a canyon. She didn't know yet if it was a rope she could cross or a web that would catch her. She took out a pen. She did something she had not done since she was a girl writing letters to crushes she never mailed. She wrote, on a clean index card, in her plainest, truest hand, "To BP, your note survived you. Your watch survived you. I don't know why I'm writing this, only that I'm the kind of person who thinks speaking into the quiet is a way to be brave. You said you cannot convince a price to love you. I believe that. But can you convince time to be honest? If honesty means showing up, then I'm here. OS 2025. She looked at the card and felt like a child praying, earnest and a bit ridiculous and unwilling to be any less. She almost put it in a drawer. She almost tore it up. Instead, she slid the card beneath the watch the way you slide a note under a door you're not brave enough to knock on. She covered both with the book, as if weight mattered to magic. The apartment went ordinary again. She did laundry. She called her mother about pie crust and cried a little, because love is rude like that. She went for a run at dusk with the watch left behind to see if absence mattered. Back home, sweaty and disciplined, she lifted the book. The card was still there. Of course it was still there. It was exactly where she had left it. Still, she let herself be a fool and pressed the watch to her ear. For half a breath she heard not a radio this time, but the scratch of a pen and a man's small exhale when he chooses the hard thing. Then it was just tick, tick, tick again, as if someone had shut a door very softly in a corridor far away. That night, she fell asleep with the watch under her pillow because Aunt Bee believed in small rituals, and Olivia, despite herself, had always been obedient to tenderness. Chapter 5. Letters that don't yet arrive. Benson kept the habit of Sunday, chapel, not for God, but for gravity. He liked the wood's patience, the hymnals softened by 1,000 hands. He sat in a back pew and tallied debts he did not intend to owe. He watched sunlight burn through stained glass and thought about how design tames colour into obedience. He wondered what else, besides money, wanted to be tamed. After he walked the long way to the office because the city told him things, on Sunday it didn't on Tuesday. Men were smaller without their bluster. Women were larger, as if their laughter had been promoted. The air had that pre-winter smell of coal and intention. He entered his rooms because rooms that belong to you are the only faithful thing in a moving world. He set his hat on the rack and unlocked the desk. His watch ticked in the tray. The silver watch, hers, though he would not think the word yet, lay beside it, sermon quiet. He couldn't explain why he kept bringing it back with him. Eleanor's gift-to-be sat like a guest who refused to leave, and who, somehow, you didn't mind baking a second pie for. He opened the ledger. The margins held his mind like a bridle. He meant to write interest calculations and the stern arithmetic of the week to come. Instead, he wrote, "To whoever holds this watch." He paused, the pen above paper, the way a man pauses above a woman's wrist when he is not sure if touching her is a promise he can keep. He began again, smaller, the vanity cut out. "To you, you are either a fancy of my fatigue or the future I pretend I don't fear. Either way, the watch seems to prefer your company to mine. On a recent night I felt, no, let me be a man who says precisely, I heard a sound where no sound was. Not the street, not the florid radioman. Something like modern electricity. You would laugh at the word modern. If you exist at all, everything I call modern would be quaint to you. Still, I am writing because I believe in leaving records. I am writing because I am tired of building a life that does not make room for a voice that is not my own. What does it mean to make time honest? I meant it as a chastisement to myself. I trade in fiction, prices, faiths, the fickle ethics of men who prefer assent to accuracy. Honesty to me is balance sheets and bloodless math. But the more I wind this small machine, the more I suspect time's honesty might be this, that it refuses to collude in our hallucinations. It brings what it brings and leaves when it leaves, and does not ask if we are ready. If you are merely the rhetorical device of a man with a costly imagination, then I forgive myself and will burn this. If you are a person, then forgive me for sounding like a fixed-income professor. What is your name? What do you know that I fail to? Do you too count seconds in the morning as if you can bargain with them? BP, New York, October 20th, 1929. He blotted the page. He stared at his own lines as if they'd been written by a cleverer, more foolish twin. He folded the sheet. He placed it under the silver watch, not because he believed the watch could ferry words, but because he believed he himself could not. He waited. Nothing theatrical happened. The lamp did not dim. The air didn't thicken. The second hand behaved. He laughed once, a sound a man makes alone when a private hope embarrasses him. He slid the letter into the box and tied it shut with twine because he needed to do something knotted with his hands. He wrote Eleanor's name on the top, then crossed it out, then wrote, "Keep." Monday was an iron gate. The market turned on itself in the way hungry animals sometimes do. Prices gapped open and forgot what dignity was. Banks made their phone calls sound like lullabies. Men who had arrived glowing left grey. Benson's hedges held the way a dam holds the first hour. He moved as if a steady body could make the floor steadier. His clerks did what boys do when they realise the gods at the front of the room are frightened. Became very competent, very quickly. At noon, he ate nothing. At 2, he realised his hands were shaking and put them flat on the desk as if calming a horse. At 4, the bell mercied them. He stood in the silence afterward, the building sighing like an old lung. He thought of sending the letter to no one, to the world at large, unaddressed. He thought of tearing it up and felt an absurd grief. He went home and filled a glass and did not drink it. He set the silver watch on the desk. He placed his palm over it as if checking a fever. He closed his eyes. In the dark behind his lids the room appeared again. The other room. with sharp white walls and a plant in a clay pot and a window that did not know how to make the light behave like it did in 1929. He did not see a face. He felt a person, a moral presence, like the idea of a book before you have opened it. He slept in his chair. He woke with his cheek creased by ledger lines. He did not believe in omens. He believed in patterns. The pattern said the weak would not be generous. He ironed his shirt, the act a prayer. He shaved and nicked himself and took the clean pain like a doctrine. He picked up the silver watch, and something in him, something stubborn and built from the same parts as ambition, softened as if a hand he did not know had placed itself gently at the base of his neck. "Make time honest," he said aloud, to himself, to the watch, to the notion of a woman who might read. "Very well. Let us be honest," he wrote again. "To you. Today the market told the truth in a cruel voice. I do not ask you to pity men who can afford to lose. I confess only that even an accurate man can be rattled by the sound of a bell when it rings at the wrong pitch. Tell me something mundane. Tell me the colour of the coat you wore this morning. Tell me that your century made room for gentleness. Tell me if you can hear me at all." BP, he placed that page under the watch too. He did not expect magic. He wanted company on paper. Chapter 6. Threads. Olivia woke Tuesday feeling hungover on nothing but hope. The watch under her pillow had printed a faint circle in the cotton, the tiniest moon. She laughed at herself in the mirror for the courage to be silly. She put on her camel coat and the red lipstick Aunt Bee had demanded, because sometimes being a woman is agreeing to be seen. She tucked the watch into her pocket and felt like she'd invited someone along. On the train, she pulled out Markets and Men and tried to pretend that the presence of a BP in her life was not turning her into a protagonist she would side-eye if she met her. When the car lurched, the watch tapped her leg. She put a hand over it and stilled, the way you lay a palm on a skittish animal. The day made its requests. She complied and resisted in equal measure, which is to say, she did a good job. At 10, her inbox delivered a reprimand disguised as quick feedback. At noon, a client called her kiddo. At 3, Mia texted a photo of her cat in a sweater that suggested crimes. Olivia ate an apple like it owed her something and smiled at anyone who tried to take her smile from her. At 5, with the floor's music already arguing with itself again, she opened the bottom drawer of her desk and found the index cards she used for clear thinking. She wrote a second note because the first had not been enough and because hunger grows when you feed it. BP, it's Tuesday, my coat is camel, and there was a man on the train with a bouquet so big he had to apologise to the entire car. A woman in green forgave him, and we all felt ourselves become better for watching it. You asked about gentleness. We are not always gentle, but sometimes we are kind in public, and the kindness lands the way birds do, sudden and correct. Also, your century's radios had beautiful voices. Ours have feeds that don't stop. I'm trying to learn how not to be eaten by them. Does that count as honesty? You said the market told the truth in a cruel voice. I work in a building that believes truth is something you can price. I know better, and I don't. And I am learning. I don't pity men who can afford to lose. I pity the small people beneath every graph. I include versions of myself in that category. I don't know why I'm writing you as if you exist, but I suppose existing has always been a matter of being read. O.S. She didn't slide this one beneath the watch on her desk like a loon. She took it home, placed it on her kitchen table, and performed the little ceremony because she had decided that bravery, for her, would be the willingness to look foolish in private. She set the watch over the edge of the card, as if it were holding it in place against a draft that hadn't yet arrived. She turned off the lights and let the apartment be a simple box with a girl inside it, trying to attract a ghost she didn't believe in. In the night, she woke. Again, that gentle summons, like a hand on a shoulder. The room was dark except for the small, thoughtless city leaking through the blinds. The watch ticked. Tick, tick. Then something else. The paper under it took on a little hum, the way electronics do, except this was paper and humming was above its pay grade. Olivia held her breath. The hum resolved into nothing. She laughed, quiet and feral, at her own terror. She lifted the watch. There were 2 words new on the card, in a hand not hers, dark as if dried in a hurry. Not at the bottom. At the top, answering her salutation with a name, Olivia Sinclair. The room did not explode. She did. She sat back hard in the chair and put a hand to her mouth because people do that when their bodies try to petition the heart to slow. The city went on unsentimentally around her. She stared until time stopped doing math. She reached out and touched the ink with a fingertip and found it real. She closed her eyes and saw tall windows and that desk and a man who stood very still when the world most wanted him to move. "Hello," she whispered, to the paper, to him, to the past, to whatever table of gods had allowed a thread to get thrown this far across. She wrote, hands shaking, the way girls write phone numbers when they still believe in summers. "Hello, Benson." Chapter 7. When a name becomes real. He had not meant to write her name. That was the first truth. Benson sat alone in his office past midnight on October 22nd, 1929, jacket off, sleeves rolled, the city outside his windows holding its breath like a debtor. The hour was too late for respectability and too early for surrender. Lamps burned low. The ticker on the credenza slept like a spent animal. Harlan and Stein had been sent home with the order to rest, which of course meant neither of them would. The air was stale from worry and ink. His ledger lay open. So did the little box. So did the part of himself he didn't let into meetings. He shouldn't have stayed. He knew the numbers. He knew what tomorrow would be. He could feel it crawling in the floorboards like a slow leak. But being home alone with his thoughts felt like weakness, and weakness was a petty enemy. Never clean, never honest. Here, in the office, surrounded by proof of his control, he could pretend control still held. The silver watch sat on the blotter, gleaming faintly. Impossible thing. He had placed his letter beneath it and felt, for a breath, uncharacteristically stupid. He had let it sit. He had paced. He had tried to work. Then something had tugged. Not sound, not light, something interior. A pull in him like a fishhook low in the chest. He'd gone back to the desk, sat, uncapped his pen, and without any conscious decision, like a hand guided by muscle memory it could not possibly have, he wrote 2 words on the clean corner of the page underneath his palm. Olivia Sinclair. He did not think the name. He did not invent it. He did not compose her. He wrote it the way a man signs his own. The moment the ink dried, the room changed. Not dramatically. No flicker, no angelic chorus, no collapsing of walls. Just this. The air thinned and cleared, like smoke lifting. His shoulders dropped in a way they hadn't in years. The knot that sat between his ribs like a permanent tenant eased 1 notch. It felt like exhaling after you didn't know you'd been holding your breath for a year. He stared at the name. Olivia. He said it under his breath, testing the mouthfeel. The syllables moved like a promise, clean and unapologetic. Sinclair, less soft. Sinclair carried bone. Sinclair sounded like someone who didn't ask permission to exist. "What have I done?" he muttered, and hated how quiet his voice sounded saying it. He wasn't a mystical man. He wasn't even a sentimental man, not safely. But Benson Pratt was not stupid, and he was not blind. He had asked, in ink, for a mundane truth, the colour of a coat. He had asked if gentleness survived whatever future she lived in. He had asked if she could hear him. Some part of him had already received an answer. He'd just written it before he understood it. He pulled the paper back toward him, careful, like it might bite. The watch sat on top of it, ticking steady. He lifted the watch. For a heartbeat. One, just one. His office wasn't his office. Gone was the pain of thick 1920s glass with its wavy imperfections. In its place, a vast sheet of modern window, tall and immaculate, holding back a night skyline he had never seen in his life. Light everywhere, light in towers that scraped the black. Light splashed over steel and glass in colours too cold and electric to be candlelight or gaslight. The city, his city, but not his city, glittered like someone had scattered coins over black water. His breath hitched, hard, violent. He had a second, maybe two, to drink it like a dying man finding a spring. And then it was gone. The old window returned, the dim lamps, the ledger, the familiar century, the persistent tick of survival. Benson leaned forward and put both elbows on the desk and pressed the heel of his hand to his eyes like a man holding his skull together. Slowly, deliberately, he exhaled. Then he did something reckless. He smiled. Not the polite uptick he used in rooms full of money. Not the dignified, restrained version of approval a man like him learned because actual joy made other men nervous. Number. He smiled like something in him had just been confirmed, like the universe had returned a message, and it had not said no. He dipped his pen again. Under her name he wrote, "So you are real." He paused. That sentence cost him. Admitting that much out loud, even in ink, was like loosening armour. You don't loosen armour unless you trust the room. He kept going. "Miss Sinclair, you asked for honesty. Allow me to be a fool then. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd, 1929. I am 30 years old. I have not slept properly in 6 days. I am not frightened of loss. I have lost before. I am frightened of humiliation. The street is propped on bravado and varnish. If this thing breaks the way I think it may, it will not just be men's fortunes that fall. It will be the lie of invincibility. Men do ugly things when that lie gets taken. You asked about gentleness in my century. There is some. Not much on the exchange floor. But I saw a woman on the corner of Broadham Wall today take a boy's chin in her hand and make him look up when he was crying. She said, 'You breathe. That's your first job.' She said it like an instruction, not a comfort. I respected the hell out of her for that. I suppose that counts. I asked you for the colour of your coat because I wanted proof you exist outside my head. 'Camel,' you said. 'Camel.' I will tell you something in return. I am wearing a charcoal suit and a blue tie I dislike. The tie was a gift from a banker who thought flattery was a currency I accepted. I keep wearing the damned thing because I have this ridiculous superstition that the first day I don't, something will crack. And yet I suspect something will crack anyway. Then, without meaning to, he added one last line. I am glad you're here. He stared at that line for a long time. That was not language he used, not in business, not in life, not even with women, and especially not with women. He could give things. He could protect. He could hold space. But I am glad you're here was intimacy, naked and unhedged. That was what a man said in a doorway, late, to the person he'd waited for all night. It shook him that it had come out of his hand like water. He let it stand. He folded the page, slid it beneath the watch, and closed his eyes. And this time, he whispered, "Please." Benson Pratt had not said please to the universe since he was 12 years old. He sat still. He waited. Nothing happened. For a long time, a long, humiliating, faithful time, nothing happened. He let out a breath he didn't want to admit had been hope, and leaned back in his chair. "Right," he muttered. "Of course," he pinched the bridge of his nose. "Insanity noted." And then something brushed his palm. Not air, pressure. As if fingers, a hand, had touched him. He froze. He looked down. He wasn't touching the watch anymore. The watch was touching him. The metal had warmed through and through. Not the passive warmth of sitting in a room, but the specific warmth of being held. And he felt underneath his palm, against the worn silver case, something impossibly fragile. Paper. Paper that hadn't been there before. He went cold from throat to stomach. He lifted his hand, slowly, like unwrapping a wound. There, under his palm, beneath the watch, was a new card. An index card, not ledger stock like his. Smoother, whiter, cut with a machine too clean to be any press he'd seen. At the top of it, in a woman's hand, "Hello, Benson." His first ungoverned thought was violent. Mine. He did not mean possession. He meant recognition. He meant, "Here you are." For a second he couldn't read any further because his eyes blurred. He swallowed, steadied, and made himself go on. Her words, her voice, on paper, on his desk, in his century, in his hands. Something in him, the part that had always been stone, cracked at the centre and began, incredibly, to feel warm. He didn't sleep at all that night. He didn't care. Because now the game had changed. Time wasn't a wall, time was a door. And he'd just heard the latch. Chapter 8. Hunger Wakes. Soft. The instant she saw it, those two words, Olivia forgot how to breathe like a normal person. Olivia Sinclair. Her name, in unfamiliar ink, in someone else's hand. In handwriting that wasn't modern, there was posture in the letters, discipline in the angles, a controlled confidence she had only ever seen in signatures on old deeds and love letters in museums. She had proof, not a vibe, not a feeling, not a maybe. Proof. Her brain did about 9 things at once. 1. Adrenaline. Her pulse ran loud in her neck, heavy in her wrists, like she'd just sprinted stairs. 2. Fear. Not scared of danger fear, more like scared of meaning fear. The fear that shows up the second you realise you are no longer playing pretend, and if you keep going, you cannot go back to being unbroken. 3. Awe, raw, immature, awe, the good kind, the kind that burns behind your eyes and crawls under your ribs and makes you feel like your body is too small to hold what's happening. 4. Defence. The part of her trained to survive Wall Street and men who smiled with their teeth said, "Calm down. Don't fall in love with ink. Don't assign nobility to a stranger just because he can spell." 5. Defiance. Right on top of that. Watch me. 6. Curiosity so sharp, it hurt. She wanted to know everything. What his voice sounded like. What his eyes did when he didn't trust someone. What his hands did when he was angry. If he had dimples. If he had scars. If he drank his coffee, bitter or sweet. If he'd ever loved someone past sense. If he'd ever been loved like that back. 7. Grief. Strange, fresh grief. Because the first thing her soul understood, even before her mind allowed it, was this. She could never meet him. Not in any normal way. Not in any day with coffee way. Not in line at a deli. Not in bed at 2 a.m. under the same blanket where the room smells like skin and heat and salt and sleep and the ache of being known. That hit like a body blow. 8. Wonder. 9. Something else, unnamed, sitting in her throat like a swallowed key. Her hands were shaking, but not small shaking. Full shaking. She put the card down on the kitchen table because she was afraid she was going to crease it just by holding it too hard, like it was alive and she might bruise it. Her eyes traced the letters again. The B in Benson. She mouthed it silently, like tasting it. Benson, she whispered to the empty room, and the way his name fit in her mouth felt obscenely right. Like the word had been waiting for her. Like the word had belonged to her first, and time had just been late. She laughed, unbelieving, and covered her face with both hands, then dragged her palms down and made herself look again. Under "Hello, Benson," her writing from last night, was more that she had definitely not written. Her heart climbed into her mouth. "So you are real?" She felt that sentence like contact. Heat shot through her. Not sexual, not yet. Something deeper, intimate on a marrow level. To be believed, to be acknowledged, to be seen. God. That's what it was. That's what it did. She'd been seen before, of course she had. Admired, flirted with, wanted, desired, assessed, envied, compared, chosen, dismissed. Men had seen her body. People had seen her competence. No one had said, "So you are real," like she was a miracle, like she was a discovery. Her chest actually hurt. She swallowed against it and kept reading, eyes stinging. "Miss Sinclair, you asked for honesty. Allow me to be a fool then." Her fingers curled on the card. He told her the date, October 22nd, 1929. Her mind flickered. A history class, a single sentence about the crash. Photos of men in hats with their faces cracked open. She felt a punch of alarm on his behalf, so sudden she had to sit down. He told her his age. 30. He told her he hadn't slept properly in 6 days. He confessed he wasn't afraid of loss. He was afraid of humiliation. Her breath broke. That line, that was not male posturing. That was bone truth. That was a man pulling the armour off down to his throat. That was, "Don't watch me fail," said in a way no one else would ever hear. That was sacred. She pressed her fist to her mouth, eyes wet. She read about the street and bravado and varnish, about lies propping up men. She read his fear of what men do when invincibility is taken from them. She watched him, in ink, understand violence before it started. Her hands were cold. He told her about a woman on Broad Wall who had lifted a boy's chin and said, "You breathe. That's your first job." Olivia actually laughed, sharp and crushed and proud, because yes, that was absolutely what a woman would do while the men panicked about numbers. Of course it was. Then he wrote, "Camel, camel." Her cheeks heated. It felt obscene, the way he'd written it. Intimate, somehow, like fingers against skin. He'd asked her the colour of her coat, like it mattered to him, in a way nothing on his floor did. Then came the part that ruined her. "I am glad you're here." Her vision went watery instantly. She dropped her head into her hands and let herself feel it. Let herself absolutely drown in the force of those 6 words. Because no one had said that to her in so long. Not, "You're impressive," not "You're beautiful," not "You're a lot," not "You're intimidating," but "I like that, it's hot, you're hot, I like strong women," not like other girls. I mean real strong women, the audition speech of men who are scared of you already. No. He had said, "I am glad you're here," as if her existence was a relief, as if she'd walked in and eased something he'd been holding alone, as if she'd arrived somewhere she belonged. Olivia pressed her forehead to the table and laughed through a small wet sob because her body could not decide which one it needed. "This is insane," she whispered into the wood. "Oh my God, this is insane. This is actually insane." But she was smiling. Not the polite smile, not work smile, not surviving smile. A real one. The kind that makes your face feel young. She sat up, wiped her face with her sleeve, swallowed, breathed again, and reached for a pen. Her hand still shook. Didn't matter. She wrote back. She didn't overthink this one. She didn't edit herself into likability. She didn't present or curate or posture. She just told the truth. "Benson, first, yes. I'm real. I'm as real as the coffee on my counter, and the rent I can barely justify. I'm as real as the blister on my left heel because I thought I could break in new boots walking to work like an idiot. Second, you're real. You wrote my name. You wrote my actual name. I can't explain what that did to me without sounding dramatic, and you're already under a lot of pressure, so I'll behave. But just know, I felt it. I felt you see me. I don't think I've had that in a long time. Third, you're in October 1929. I'm in October 2025. Benson. That week, your week, it goes bad. It goes so bad. People jump, banks break. We study it like a cautionary tale. We call it a crash and talk about liquidity like it's weather, but I know it's not weather to you. It's oxygen. I'm saying this because I don't know the rulebook here. I don't know if I can say too much or not enough without doing something cosmic and stupid. I just need you to know, you're not wrong to feel the floor moving. You're not crazy. You're seeing it. Fourth, humiliation is a brutal fear. I understand it too well. I work in finance in my time. Yes, women do that now. We're allowed. Barely. And we still get called kiddo and sweetheart and intense, like it's a warning label. My entire job sometimes feels like maintaining composure so no one ever sees me bleed. You said men do ugly things when invincibility dies. My version? Men do ugly things when you don't play small, so I learned to play crisp. It's different, but it's not. Fifth, I wish I could touch you on the shoulder and tell you to breathe. That's your first job. I don't know if that crosses time. I don't know where my hand would land. But I'd do it. Sixth, I am also glad you're here. Her throat tightened on that, but she kept going. Seventh, tell me your tie. Blue I dislike is not enough detail, Pratt. I need shades. Navy, cornflower, banking regret teal. If we are breaking physics, we are not doing vague menswear. Eighth, tell me what you actually want, not the thing you say in a room. The thing you don't say out loud because saying it would mean you have to need something. Tell me that. I'll go first so you don't bolt. I want someone who doesn't make me apologise for wanting. I want steady. I want heat. I want to be chosen at the end of the day on purpose by someone whose mind I respect so much it scares me a little. I want to come home and drop all the armour and not have them flinch at the weight of it. I want... She stopped, pen hovering. That was almost too naked. Almost. She breathed once, hard, and then decided, screw it. If time had opened a door, then cowardice had no place here. I want to be loved in a way that doesn't ask me to get smaller first. She felt like she'd just thrown open her ribs and laid her heart on the table between them. Her whole body hummed. Her face was flushed. Her pulse was too high. Her palms were damp. God, she was alive. She closed the card with, P.S. My coat is camel, yes. The lining is torn at the left wrist because I pull at it when I'm nervous. So there, now you have that too. P.P.S. I'm eating cereal out of a wine glass because I haven't washed a bowl. That's the level of glamour you're working with. Olivia. She stared at what she'd written and felt every instinct she'd been trained with scream at her to edit, polish, control. She didn't. She slid the card under the watch. She laid both hands over it, fingers curved, like prayer. Okay, she whispered, quietly, fiercely. Okay, I'm here. I'm here. For a moment nothing happened. Then she felt it, a warmth under her palm that wasn't hers, a slow press, broad and sure, like a hand over hers. Big hand. Not delicate, steady, male. Her breath caught so hard she almost choked on it. Her eyes blew wide. Her bones remembered something her skin had never known. Her body answered like it had just been placed against a chest, like she wasn't alone at her kitchen table in Tribeca in 2025, like she was standing behind a desk in 1929 with a man who held himself like a loaded promise and had just, very gently, covered her hand with his. Olivia's vision blurred. Her lips parted. Benson, she breathed. And for one suspended, impossible, mercilessly intimate heartbeat in the middle of a century that did not deserve this moment, She felt him answer in the quiet. Not with words, not with speech, with presence, with yes. Chapter 9, Structural Failure. Wednesday, October 23rd, 1929. Benson had seen fear before. He'd seen it in men's eyes in 21 when a bad shipment had bankrupted an uncle. He'd seen it in his mother's jaw the winter his father coughed blood and pretended not to. He'd seen it in his own face, at 12, in the reflection of a bakery window when he realised childhood had packed its things and left. But this was different. This was systemic. It had a pulse. The street was vibrating. The bell opened and the market didn't so much trade as convulse. Orders slammed through. Prices staggered, lurched, collapsed, clawed, collapsed again. Voices rose above acceptable register. Men shoved each other out of sheer animal terror. The clerk's hands blurred, ink spitting. Phones screamed. Brokers bled through their collars and didn't notice. "Mr. Pratt! Mr. Pratt!" Harlan's voice too high. Benson's body moved before his mind did. He crossed the room, calm like a false god, and put a hand on Harlan's shoulder. "Breathe," he said, low, firm. "That's your first job?" The kid's eyes flooded. "Sir, I said breathe." Harlan inhaled like it hurt. Benson looked at the tape. It rattled, stuttery, printing panic in code. In his pocket, the silver watch felt warmer than it had any right to be. He had put her card there, her handwriting, her words. Folded, carried. He'd reread them twice in private before all this began, and twice was enough to brand him. He hadn't known a body could react like his did reading her. It had been almost violent. The first line, Benson, had made every muscle along his spine tighten and then unlock, like someone had finally cut him loose. No one said his name like that, not clipped and respectful, not with need attached to it. She had written it like she was touching his face when she said it. Then, "First, yes, I'm real. Second, you're real." He had sat back in his chair, heartbeat in his throat, and let that sentence sit inside him like whiskey. "You wrote my actual name. I felt it. I felt you see me." Christ, Christ. He hadn't known you could hit a man like that without laying a hand on him. You could spend a lifetime in rooms full of power and never once be told you were seen. And then she'd said it to him. Freely, casually, like it wasn't a sacrament. He'd had to set the page down and breathe. Then she told him the truth he wasn't supposed to have. Crash. He'd read that line and gone very, very still. He was not a fanciful man, but he wasn't arrogant enough to ignore a messenger with blood in her words. "You're weak. It goes bad. It goes so, so bad." He had felt that sentence land like impact. He had pushed his chair back and stood, walked to the window, and looked down at Broad like a general surveying a field he hadn't chosen and couldn't abandon. He understood instantly what she hadn't quite said. He was standing in the prelude to history. He hadn't panicked. He'd clarified. Information is mercy. He'd read the rest shaking for an entirely different reason. "I work in finance in my time." He'd actually laughed out loud, shocked, delighted, unreasonably proud, furious at every man in his era who would have told her no. "We're allowed," she'd written. God, she was acid. God, she was alive. Men do ugly things when you don't play small. He'd felt his jaw tighten. Yes. Too true. Different battlefield. Same war. Then, "I wish I could touch you on the shoulder and tell you to breathe. That's your first job." He'd closed his eyes and felt, for a heartbeat, contact. Light. Cool. A hand that wasn't his on his shoulder, like benediction. He'd swallowed hard enough it hurt. Then she'd gone for his throat. "Tell me what you actually want. Not the thing you say in a room. I'll go first so you don't bolt. I want someone who doesn't make me apologise for wanting. I want to be loved in a way that doesn't ask me to get smaller first." He'd had to sit down for that. He'd had to put his elbows on his knees and bow his head and breathe in through his nose like he was bleeding and didn't want to drip on the suit. Because no one had ever asked him that. Want was dangerous in his world. Want was leverage. Want was how they got you. He had built an entire self on not wanting, on need, translated into duty, duty translated into order, order translated into profit. You can't be hurt by the thing you don't name. And then she asked. And then she told. And then she handed him that terrifying, exquisite truth. I want to be loved, without having to get smaller first. He'd shut his eyes and felt something in his ribcage. Some iron bar, some lifelong brace. Grown. Not break, not yet. But grown. Like foundations under stress. And then, the line that sealed it. I am also glad you're here. He'd actually laughed. He'd laughed like a man with his head thrown back in the dark. A low, stunned, unbelieving sound, right there alone in his office at 2 a.m. in 1929, while the city muttered and history sharpened its knife. Because she was glad. Because she said it. Because for the first time in his adult life, Benson Pratt felt not alone. Not admired, not respected, not feared, not useful, just not alone. He folded the card and tucked it into his inside pocket, close to his heart. He slid the watch in after it like a vault door. And then the floor opened. Now, in the chokehold chaos of Wednesday, he touched that pocket, without even thinking. Just brushed it. Just a second. Just enough to remind his body, you are held. He didn't look down because appearances mattered. He didn't let the other men see him do it. But he felt for her anyway, through fabric, through time, like a man checking for proof of a pulse. And he swore it. He felt the faintest answering pressure. His body stilled, his voice steadied. He returned to the phone. Harlan, he said, tell Leighton to sell in eighths, not quarters. He'll argue. Let him. He'll thank me Thursday. Stein, call First Mercantile and tell them if they don't extend call terms, I'll walk my business to Greeley today. Use that word. Today. Make sure he hears it. Yes, Mr. Pratt. He took a breath, rolled his shoulders once and walked into the panic like it owed him rent. He did not know if he could stop what was coming, but he knew this. He would not be swallowed quietly. Because he had someone, impossibly, unbelievably, on his side. Her, Olivia, his, not his yet. Careful. Still. The word had lodged. He wasn't sure he could pry it loose. By last bell, men looked broken. Not just tired. Broken. Some of them weren't even pretending not to shake. Benson felt wrung out, like a towel twisted by a strong hand. His tie, navy, of course it was navy, some banker's idea of authority, hung loose. He hated that tie. He hated the way it cut like a leash across his throat. He yanked it off and shoved it in his pocket, and felt, with savage satisfaction, like he'd just cut off a shackle. He closed the office door behind the last clerk and locked it. He leaned with both palms on his desk. He bowed his head. Then he pulled out the card and the watch. He didn't sit. He needed to stand for this. He needed to feel his own weight. He set the watch down, careful as prayer. He smoothed the card in front of him. He uncapped his pen and let himself write what his body was already shouting. Olivia, you asked what I want. You warned me not to answer like a man in a room. I won't. You said you went first so I wouldn't bolt. For the record, you assuming I would bolt offends me. I don't bolt. I retreat strategically. Here is what I want. I want to stop being useful and start being wanted. I am tired of being valued for my function. I know how to hold a line. I know how to fix a ledger. I know how to walk into a burning room and not inhale. I am good at that. Too good. Men call me when they are drowning because I do not shake. I go. I pull them out. I carry their weight. I am proud of that. but I am so tired. I want, and I have never said this aloud, and if you laugh, I will build a machine to cross time, just to scowl at you in person. I want a place to put my forehead down, just for a minute, just long enough to sleep without one eye open. I want someone's hand at the back of my neck when I am too proud to admit that I am not made of iron. I want to be allowed to be quiet without being asked, "What's wrong?" I want to be touched like I am not an asset, not a calculation, not an instrument. I want to be held like a man. I want to be held like myself. And yes, I want heat. I am not pretending otherwise. I want a woman who can look me dead in the eye without lowering hers and tell me what she needs. And I want to be the one who learns her in such brutal detail that I can give it to her before she has to ask. You have me writing filth to a stranger through a cursed watch in the middle of a bank run. Do you understand the kind of influence you have already? But more than that, I want this. I want someone whose mind terrifies me, Olivia. I want to be in a room and say something I am sure is correct and have her tilt her head and go, "Try again," and make me better. I want that fight. I want that respect. You said you want to be loved without being made smaller first. You deserve that. Anyone who asked you to shrink should be put in the river. Here is my promise, and I do not make promises cheaply. If I ever have the right to touch you, I will never ask you to be less. One more thing. You told me men do ugly things when you don't play small. I need you to hear this. You do not play small for me. Do you understand me? You don't dim. You don't fold. You don't soften your edges because I am tired. I am tired of a world that thinks power is how quiet you keep a woman. God, listen to me. Look what you've made of me in 48 hours. It is late. I have not eaten. Our banks are pretending they are not on fire. I should be sleeping, and I am standing here in my shirt sleeves, my tie in my pocket, like a surrendered weapon, telling a woman who does not technically exist in my century that I want to lay my forehead on her and sleep. Olivia, I am very afraid I'm already yours. He stopped. His hand was shaking. He swallowed. He hated that he'd written that last line. He loved that he'd written that last line. Both lived in him at once like two men arguing at a bar. He added, softer, almost small, P.S. You are eating cereal out of a wine glass. That is depraved behaviour. Eat something with protein. P.P.S. The lining of your coat is torn at the wrist. Fix it. You will worry it open if you don't. Also, I like knowing that about you so much it makes my teeth ache. He stared at the page, heart pounding. I am very afraid I'm already yours. Jesus Christ. He'd actually said it. That was not language he knew he had. That was not move slow courting. That wasn't even courting. That was surrender dressed like a confession. That was him putting his throat in her hands. He should have crossed it out. He didn't. He slid the card under the watch. He pressed his palm down. He closed his eyes. Please, he whispered again, not even ashamed this time. Please take it. The metal warmed under his hand like skin, and Benson, who had never in his 30 years begged anyone for anything, exhaled like a man who had been drowning and had just, finally, broken the surface. Chapter 10. The First Break. Her hands were still tingling. She couldn't get over that part. She'd felt him. Not metaphor, not flight of fancy, not "I feel you" like a lyric. Actual contact. That pressure over her hand, steady, broad, protective, had lit up every nerve ending in her like someone had flipped her breaker box and said, "Wake up." Now she couldn't stop replaying it. She was useless at work. Utterly useless. Her body was in the chair, her headset on, her eyes on her screens. She built a model. She ran a macro scenario. She answered 2 emails that began with "circling back here" in a voice so polite it counted as violence. She nodded at a VP like she respected him more than she did. She even ate half a protein bar because she'd promised herself last month she wouldn't live on caffeine and spite. But her mind was with a man in 1929 who had written, "Olivia, I'm very afraid I'm already yours." The sentence had set off a panic in her chest, so strong she'd had to mute herself on a client call and pretend to cough because her voice had gone unsteady. She'd read it in her kitchen at 1:13 a.m, alone, barefoot, hoodie thrown over her sleep shirt, fridge humming in the background like cheap white noise. She'd read it again and again, each pass like running her fingertips over a bruise. No one had ever said anything like that to her, not even close. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't flattery. It wasn't performance. It was surrender, offered willingly. It was, "Here is the truth of me. I'm putting it on your table. Do what you will." It was trust, wrapped in hunger. And it hit her like heat, because this was the thing she had starved for without naming it. Someone who did not negotiate her. Someone who didn't evaluate her desire and then decide if they could handle it. Someone who didn't withhold first, test first, wait her out to see how much she'd give without asking for anything in return. Benson hadn't put her on trial. He'd walked in, took off his armor, and sat down across from her and said, "This is mine, and now that you've seen it, it's yours if you want it." Her whole body had answered. Now at 11:40 a.m, on the 27th floor, with Manhattan crisp and bright outside, Olivia Sinclair had to stand up from her desk and go to the bathroom just to breathe. She leaned both hands on the sink and stared at herself in the mirror. The fluorescent lights were unkind. Office mirrors always tell the crueler version. Still, she saw it. Something alive in her face that wasn't there 3 days ago. Colour high in her cheeks. Heat in her mouth. Her eyes soft and sharp at once. She looked like a woman who'd been touched without being touched. She looked like a woman who'd been chosen. Her reflection laughed, small and a little wild. "Careful," she whispered to herself, and then made a face. Because she knew what she felt right now. This was the kind of thing that could burn her to the foundation. This was the kind of thing you didn't walk away from unchanged, even if it ended in ash. This was the kind of thing that did not ask politely if your schedule was open. Her phone buzzed in her back pocket. "Mia, lunch, sinner? Now." Olivia texted back, 5, bathroom, existential crisis. "Mia, grab it, bring it with you, I'll triage it." Olivia smiled despite her pulse still racing. She fixed her lipstick. She went back out. She dropped into a chair across from Mia at a deli that smelled like pastrami and old arguments. Mia narrowed her eyes instantly. "Okay," Mia said. "Tell me which one. You either got laid, got promoted, or found religion." Olivia choked on her water. "What?" "You have this," Mia waved a fork at her face, "thing. Like you swallowed a lightning bolt and it's still fizzing." "Spill." Olivia stared at her sandwich and then, very quietly, said, "I met someone." Mia's eyebrows went Olympic. "Oh my God, who? When? From where? Is he tall? I'll forgive you if he's not tall, but don't lie to me." Olivia held up a hand, laughing, shaking her head fast. No, it's not like that. It's not," she swallowed. "How did you explain this without being institutionalized?" "He's not here," Mia blinked. "Like, Toronto? Further? LAE? Further." Mia sat back, narrowed her eyes, leaned in, slow. "Olivia, if you tell me you are having a situationship with a man in prison..." "What? Number?" God, Olivia dragged a hand over her face. It's not... I can't... You're going to think I'm insane." Mia set her sandwich down like it had offended her. "Hurricane, I watched you develop a 6-month crush on a guy at Equinox because he re-racked his weights and said, 'Excuse me,' when he walked behind you." "I already know you're insane." "Give." Olivia bit her bottom lip to stop the hysterical laugh climbing up. She looked at Mia's face. Mia, who'd sat on Olivia's bathroom floor once at 2 a.m. while Olivia cried about nothing and everything and braided her hair in silence until she calmed. Mia, who never weaponized information. Mia, who didn't scare easy. Okay. I think, Olivia whispered, pulse thundering, I'm talking to a man in 1929. Mia stared at her. Olivia swallowed. Mia blinked once, then, without moving any other part of her face, Mia said, Okay, so I'm going to need you to elaborate just a little bit. Olivia let out a sound that was almost a sob and almost a laugh. You're not calling a therapist? Oh, if you're still saying that in 3 weeks, absolutely, Mia said breezily. But for now, I'm thrilled. Keep going, Olivia told her. Not everything. Not the line, I'm very afraid I'm already yours. That one felt like it wasn't hers alone to spend. But she told her about the watch. About Aunt B. About the engraving, Make Time Honest. About the ledger slip from 1929. About the way she'd felt that first radio bleed through the ticking in the middle of the night. About how she'd written to him half as a joke and half as a wish, and how his replies, his actual ink, Mia, had shown up under the watch. About how he'd written her name first. About how she'd felt his hand. Mia didn't interrupt. She didn't laugh. Her face went from amused to curious to cautious to, and this surprised Olivia, tender. When Olivia finished, Mia sat back and blew out air. Okay, she said again, thoughtful this time. That's either the hottest haunting I've ever heard of, or you've time-matched with a dead financier, or you're in the middle of a psychotic break. And babe, if this is a psychotic break, ride it. Because you look amazing, Olivia laughed helplessly, shoulders shaking. You think I'm insane. Honey, Mia said softly. We're all insane. You're just finally having fun with it. Olivia rubbed her thumb over the rim of her water glass, and her voice went smaller. Mia, I think I'm falling. Mia's eyes sharpened. 1 second she was joking, the next she was all spine. Oh, she said quietly. Oh, sweetheart. Olivia swallowed. Is that possible? Fast with someone I've never... Yes, Mia said instantly. Yes. Don't let any man who's taken 3 months to text back tell you otherwise. She leaned in. Fast doesn't mean fake. Fast just means true arrived all at once. Olivia's throat wobbled. Mia held her gaze. Does he make you feel stupid? No. Small? No. On trial? No. Mia tilted her head. Do you feel like you're begging him to see you? Olivia laughed, watery. No, God, no. He sees me too much. It's almost scary. Olivia nodded helplessly. Yes. Mia nodded, satisfied. Then fall, she said. You get to. Screw rules, screw logic, screw physics, apparently. Olivia huffed a laugh and wiped at her eyes. Physics is already screwed, so I guess. Yeah. They sat in quiet for a moment, the city moving around them, the deli clatter filling in their silence with ordinary noise. Then Mia smirked. Is he hot? Olivia choked. Mia? What? I'm trying to picture him while I worry about your star-crossed time warp situationship. Give me something. Olivia leaned back in her chair and let herself see him in the way her mind had been dying to. The jaw she'd glimpsed in that first flash. Strong, clean, like it could take a punch and keep going. The way he'd stood in his office in her mind. Posture, military steady, but not cruel. The hands. God, his hands. Broad, sure, veins along the back, sleeves rolled to forearms. She had felt those hands. At least one. She knew the weight of it. She knew the promise of it. She felt heat crawl up her throat. Her voice dropped, honest, reverent. He holds himself like a man who doesn't show you everything he can do unless you've earned it. Mia went silent. Okay, Mia said after a beat, nodding like she'd been handed state secrets. Yeah, okay, You can wreck your life for that. Olivia barked out a laugh. Mia pointed a fry at her. I'm serious. You go ahead and have your impossible epic, babe. I'll bring flowers to whatever emotional crater you crawl out of. Olivia leaned forward, forehead in her palm, smiling. You're a menace. I'm a friend, Mia said, and I'm jealous. God, I'm jealous. I want a ghost financier with boundary issues and a tragic tie, Olivia snorted. He hates the tie. Obviously he hates the tie, Mia said. I hate the tie and I've never seen the tie. They fell into easy chatter after that. Work, rent. The woman from HR who wore talons and smile-hunted interns. Mia's downstairs neighbour who sang opera at 1 a.m. like heartbreak was a sport. But under all of it, warm and alive in Olivia's pocket where the watch sat wrapped in a napkin to protect it, was the new card. She hadn't had time to read it yet. He'd answered her. It was burning a hole in her. She practically ran home after work. Heart in her throat, she locked her apartment door, threw her keys down, kicked off her boots badly, almost tripped over one, didn't care. She set her coat on the chair, pulled out the napkin, unwrapped the watch like it was a relic, and laid the new card flat on the table. Her stomach swooped, her hands hovered. Then she read. By the end of the first paragraph, she had a hand over her mouth. By the end of the second, she was shaking. By the time she reached, I want a place to put my forehead down. I want to be allowed to be quiet without being asked, what's wrong? I want to be held like myself. She was crying silently, tears slipping down fast, clean, relentless. When she hit, if I ever have the right to touch you, I will never ask you to be less. A sound ripped out of her chest she did not know her body could make. Not a sob, not a laugh, something animal, something like grief finding oxygen. She pressed the heel of her free hand to her sternum because it hurt. It actually hurt. Then she read Olivia. I am very afraid I am already yours. And she broke. Just broke. Mouth open, eyes squeezed shut, breath shaking. Because that was it. That was the hit. That was the thing. Not, I like you. Not, I want you. Not, you're hot. Not, let's see where this goes. Number, he'd said. My belonging is already happening. I don't control it. I'm telling you before I even know what that means, because honesty is now a condition of survival. Her body answered with this echoing, aching yes, like it had been living under her skin for years, waiting to get called. She laughed and cried at the same time, and the mix felt insane and exquisite. Her face was wet, her nose was running. She didn't care. Then she saw it, at the very bottom. After PPS, I like knowing that about you so much it makes my teeth ache. A third line, 3 words, not in ink like his. Fainter, softer, tilted, like someone adding a secret at the last possible moment. Breathe, Benson. Her handwriting. She hadn't written it yet. Her heart slammed so hard she had to grip the table. She stared at those words, small and ordinary, and time-sick. Her stomach swooped. Okay, she whispered out loud, voice hoarse. Okay, okay. Her timeline had just bent, not only back, forward. He'd written to her, she'd written back. He'd gotten it, he'd answered. Now, somehow, she had answered his answer before she'd written it. Time wasn't linear between them. It was stitched, interlaced, woven, threads crossing threads. Her breath came fast, shallow. Her body understood something before her mind did. This wasn't just flirting with a man in a different year. This wasn't just romance in a pretty, tragic box. This was structural. They were in each other's present. They were active forces in each other's lives. Right now. Which meant, and this realization hit her like impact, like brakes failing, like that sick falling roller coaster lurch. If his world shattered, if 1929 took him, if the crash pulled him under, she might feel it as it happened, and she might not be able to stop it. Her mouth went dry. Her heart pounded in her throat so hard it hurt. Her hands flattened on the table. Her voice came out a rasp. "Benson," she whispered to the watch. "Listen to me." And with that, without planning, without thinking, with nothing but terror and love moving her hand, Olivia Sinclair grabbed a pen and started writing into history. Chapter 11, Impact Warning. There are certain moments when the world stops pretending you're in control. It doesn't ask. It doesn't knock. It just walks in and says, "Now." Olivia didn't even sit down. She wrote standing, bent over the table, hair falling forward, pen moving so fast the ink almost couldn't keep up. Her pulse was in her teeth. Her breath felt too loud in the quiet apartment. She wasn't thinking about paradox. She wasn't thinking about rules. She wasn't thinking about what she was allowed to tell him. She was thinking about his hands shaking and him pretending they weren't. She was thinking about humiliation. She was thinking about, "I am very afraid I'm already yours." She wrote like she was holding a wound closed. "Benson, listen to me. Listen. Do not shrug this off because you're proud. Do not tell yourself you can carry an entire building on your back out of principle. You cannot fix what is about to happen by being noble. You cannot save everyone. You cannot walk into a burning room and drink the smoke for them. I know you. You will try. Don't. It's going to get worse. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because I respect you enough to tell you the truth. And because if I don't, I'll break. October 24th, 1929. 2 days from the date you gave me. People in my time call it Black Thursday. That's the day the market goes feral in public. Panic selling. Banks throwing money in to try to calm it down. Press posing for photographs like order still exists. The pictures are famous here. Everyone in hats, bodies packed like a flood. You'll recognize the look in their faces. After that, it doesn't just bounce. It keeps failing. It keeps tearing. It isn't just a bad day. It's an unraveling. I am not telling you this to say run. I know you. You won't run. I wouldn't even love you if you would. I am telling you this because you need to protect two things. Yourself. The people who are under you. That's it. That's your job. That's your whole job. Do you hear me? Harlan-Stein. Anyone whose paycheck depends on you. Anyone who would go hungry if they lost their desk tomorrow. You protect them. You make a plan now, not Thursday. Now. You do not wait for men above you to show mercy. They won't. They will say pretty things. They will promise. They will not hold the line. You will. Send them home early if you have to. Get cash in their hands. Reputation is going to mean nothing for a while. Food and rent and staying intact will. Be shameless about this. I don't care how it looks. I don't care if certain men call you soft. Let them starve on pride. That is not your problem. And you are not allowed to go down with the building. Do you understand me? You are not allowed. I will not accept that. I refuse. Pull back your exposure where you can. I know you already hedged. Of course you did. Of course you did. I nearly screamed when I read that. Because of course you did. Hedge harder. Take the hit to ego now so you can still be standing in a week. Pride is not edible. Listen. I don't care if the whole street calls you a coward for an afternoon. You can't help anyone if you're gone. I want you alive. Do you understand me? I want you alive. That is not optional. One more thing. This matters. Look at me. Breathe. That is not weakness. That is not indulgence. That is not femininity or softness or any stupid word men will use to insult staying alive. It is biology. I am not losing you because you forgot to oxygenate. I know you're scared of being humiliated. I know you think that is the worst thing that can happen. You are wrong. The worst thing that can happen is you disappear. I am telling you this as someone living in the fallout of what you're standing inside. We survive humiliation. We rebuild. We claw back. We adapt. You cannot adapt if you're dead. So you save yourself. You save your boys. You do not apologize for that. You hear me? You asked what I want. Right now, I want you breathing on Friday. That's it. That's all. You breathing. And if you're thinking, I don't deserve for someone to want that much from me, congratulations. You're an idiot, and you're going to have to get over it. Olivia P.S. You told me you want a place to put your forehead down. You have it. Whether or not I am in your room, at your desk, in your bed, across your table, you have it. You put your head down. Right now, if you have to. You can. You're allowed. No one else gets to see. It's ours. P.S. Fix the coat lining. Bold of you to think I mend, but I'll try if you try not to die. Her throat was raw by the time she finished. Her hand hurt. Her heart hurt. Her whole body hummed like she'd just run for her life. She slid the card beneath the watch, palms shaking, then dropped both hands flat and leaned over it like she could force it through. Take it, she whispered, voice breaking. Please, please take it. The metal was cool for 2 seconds. Then it warmed. Not slowly this time. Immediately. Like skin. Heat flooded into her palm in one clean rush and flooded her forearm up to the elbow, up into her shoulder like a live current. Olivia gasped. Her knees went weak. She braced on the table. Her eyes snapped shut. And in that instant, she felt him. Not like before. Not a press of a hand over hers, not a presence in the room, not the sense of him. Him. Full. Immediate. Intimate in a way she didn't even have words for because it wasn't touching. Not exactly. It was like standing chest to chest with him, close enough to feel his breath hit her collarbone, close enough to feel the tension running through his shoulders, close enough to feel... He was shaking, not visibly, deep, internal. A tremor under the skin, in the tendons, in the jaw, the kind of tremor a man forces down so no one sees because if anyone sees it, they'll know he's not bulletproof. And layered under that tremor, like barbed wire under muscle, shame, humiliation, alive and feral and choking. It hit her like a taste, metallic and hot at the back of her own tongue. Her whole body went hot with anger, protective and instant. No, she breathed, not sure if she said it with sound or just pushed it through whatever this was. No, number. You don't get to feel ashamed for trying not to drown. And under that anger, she felt something else from him, something raw and almost boyish that he hadn't let himself touch in years. Relief. Like an animal finally dropping its weight after being held up past endurance. Relief so intense it went painful. Relief that wasn't, the market stabilized. Relief that wasn't, we survived the bell. Relief that was, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here. Her breath caught. Her vision went blurry behind closed lids. Her body went soft and electric. He was with her. Her in 2025. Him in 1929. And for a heartbeat, one perfect, lawless heartbeat, the distance did not exist. He was there, and she was there, and the line between years didn't matter. There was just a man holding the line in a century that was about to shatter, and a woman in another century gripping his hand across time like a lifeline, and saying, breathe. Her chest shook. Benson, she whispered, and she felt him flinch at the sound of his own name in her voice. Flinch, and then lean into it, like heat. Her throat closed. Do what I told you, she said, low, fierce, steady, the way the woman on Broad and Wall had spoken to that crying boy. Hear me. You protect Harlan and Stein. You get them out. You hear me? You do not let them sink with you as ballast. I will not forgive you if you let them drown to protect some man's idea of who you're supposed to be. Do you understand me? A beat. A breath. Something that wasn't quite a sound shuddered out of him and into her bones. Yes. She felt it. Not word. A surrender, yes. Her eyes flooded. Good, she whispered, voice wrecked. Another beat, longer. He was still there. He hadn't let go. And then, God help her, she felt it. His forehead, that weight he'd written about, lower against her. Not literally. Her body and his body were still separated by almost a century, by physics, by everything. But she felt him rest, like he'd finally let his head drop into the space she'd given him. Like he'd just, finally, after God knows how long, put his weight down and let someone else hold it for a second. Her throat closed and her knees almost gave out. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered before she could stop herself. The second she said it, she felt him tense like he'd been shot. Pride, reflex, masculinity, armor. And then slowly, melt. Like ice surrendering under a palm. Her entire body ached with how much she wanted to touch him for real. To take his face in both hands. To press her mouth to his temple. To tell him, it's okay. You're allowed. The warmth faded, not gone, just eased, like he'd stepped back a half inch. She opened her eyes. Her apartment came back into focus. Her table, her ugly chipped mug, the plant in the corner she was miraculously keeping alive. The street noise below, far and indifferent. Her hands were still on the watch. Her cheeks were wet. Her breath was shaking. She let out a laugh that cracked midway. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we're doing this. We're actually doing this. She lifted the watch just to breathe. Underneath it, the card she'd written was gone. Gone. In its place, a different sheet. Older stock. His paper. His ink. Her stomach dropped. Her heart kicked. He'd already answered. She didn't remember timing, hadn't registered how long her eyes had been closed, how long they'd held each other like that. Time between them wasn't a line. It was a knot. Her hands trembled. She lifted the new page. Her name was at the top. Olivia. I am doing as you said. Do you understand? I am obeying you. Take whatever victory you wish from that. Tell your century a man like me bent the knee in 1929 and ask if they believe you. I sent Harlan and Stein home with cash. I told them to put it in their mothers' hands and tell their mothers to keep it in their dresses, not in the bank. I did not ask permission to issue those envelopes. I did not report it as an expense. Fire me. Let them. I do not care. I liquidated 2 positions at a loss this afternoon, and every man in the room tried to explain to me what I had just done as if I were an unruly child. I smiled and thanked them for their counsel, and pretended I was not imagining putting each of their heads through the nearest window. I expect to be called disloyal before noon tomorrow. I expect to be called coward by supper. I find I do not mind. You said the word alive, and for a long moment, I understood I have been moving for years without actually living. I do not know if I am humiliated or grateful to you for that. Possibly both. You said I am not allowed to go down with the building. Olivia, listen to me. I heard you. You touched me and I heard you. I am not romanticizing this. I am reporting facts. I felt you. That happened. I am 30. I am not a boy. I am not given to delirium. I felt your hand on mine and then, God help me, I let my head touch what was offered. No one has offered me that in 15 years. No one. You said, oh, sweetheart, I will not recover from that easily. I need you to understand something, and I need you to take it seriously. You told me you want me alive on Friday. I have never in my entire life had someone want me alive as their first and only condition. I have had people need me functional. I have had people depend on me. I have had people want what I could generate, what I could fix, what I could carry. I have never had anyone want me, Benson, breathing. For the sake of being breathing, so I am telling you, in return for that, what is now true. I want you in my future. Do you understand me? I want you in my future. Say yes or no. I am not a coward. I can survive a number. I cannot live in an unclarified maybe. Say yes, or say no. If you say yes, I will build the rest of my life around that axis. If you say no, I will keep breathing because you asked me to. But Olivia, answer me. BPS. You told me not to die. In return, I am telling you, eat something with protein. That is non-negotiable. I'm picturing a steak. Or eggs. Do you have eggs? Do not lie to me. PPS. Mend the damn coat. Her vision doubled. Her breath stopped. Her whole body flushed from throat to knees. Say yes or no, say yes or no. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't asking her to see where this goes. He was asking her to make a call on the axis his entire tomorrow would now turn on. He'd offered her his future like other men offer you half their fries. Easy, casual, temporary, reversible. Except it wasn't easy, and it wasn't casual, and there was nothing reversible about the way he'd just handed her his life and said pick. Her hands shook so hard she had to set the paper down before she tore it. Her mind was racing, panic fast. But the panic wasn't fear of him. It was fear of herself. Because she knew. She knew. In the marrow-deep way, you know a storm is coming, before the air moves. She already knew her answer. Her heart already knew and had known since the second she felt his head lower into her. Yes. Her heart had already said yes. Her throat closed. Her body trembled. A raw, young part of her, the part that had watched her parents hold each other in the kitchen, swaying slow to no music, thinking, God, I want that, rose up so hard in her she almost sobbed. The cynical part of her, the part Wall Street had trained, the part men had tried to carve into something smaller, panicked, tried to get a hand on the wheel. Be careful. You don't know him. He could be lying. This could be a hallucination. This could be a trauma response. This could be you self-manufacturing a soulmate because you're lonely and tired and overworked and you read too much. But loneliness doesn't control heat, and trauma doesn't invent that kind of steadiness, and no lie had ever made her feel safer. She picked up the pen. Her hand was shaking, but her handwriting wasn't. Benson, yes. You asked me to say yes or no. I'm saying yes. I don't mean, yes, I like you. I don't mean, yes, let's flirt until one of us gets bored. I don't mean, yes, this is cute. I mean, yes, I will be in your future, and you will be in mine. I mean, yes, you are allowed to build around this, around me, around us. I mean, yes, I am already doing that, and I am not ashamed. And before you start inventing ways to sabotage that because you think you're protecting me, stop. You don't get to decide you're unworthy on my behalf. That's not noble. That's manipulative. Don't do it. I said yes. Take the win. Breathe. Live. You told me you want a place to put your forehead down? You have that. Permanently. That's not a loan. That's home. That's yours. You get to keep that. And you want to know something else you get? You get someone who will tell you, eat, and mean it as much as I want you. You get someone who will tell you sleep like it's an act of worship. You get someone who will remind you you're a person and not a weapon. You get someone who will tell you no when pride tries to drive. You get someone who will tell you, enough, sit, I've got you for a minute. That's me. That's what I am saying yes to. I don't offer that lightly. So there you go. Answer delivered. P.S. I have eggs. Fine. I'll eat eggs. Don't get smug. P.P.S. You're the most arrogant, impossible, stubborn, honourable man I have ever not technically met. I'm in so much trouble. Olivia. She slid the card beneath the watch. Her hand stayed there. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel the pulse in her lips. She whispered, shaking, smiling through it. There. There. You asked. I answered. You're not allowed to doubt now. We're in this, you hear me? We're in this. For a second, one beautiful, dizzy second, the entire room hummed. Like her apartment had briefly become part of a frequency only the two of them lived on. The watch warmed. She felt him. And this time, the feeling wasn't desperate. It wasn't shaking. It wasn't a man holding himself upright on the last inch of willpower. It was gratitude. Pure, stunned gratitude that felt like light through her lungs. It made her laugh, helpless and wet and shaking. "Hi," she whispered, through tears. "Yeah, hi, I know, me too." Then, softer, truer, rawer, "I'm yours too." And there it was, said, named, no way back, no desire to go. Outside her window, Manhattan went on like nothing in the world had shifted. Inside her little apartment kitchen, the axis of two lives had just snapped into place. And time, arrogant, stubborn, cruel, unyielding time, felt, for the first time in both of their lives, like it had flinched. Chapter 12. Thursday opens its mouth. October 24th, 1929. Black Thursday. History would name it like a headline, but in Benson's body, it did not feel like history. It felt like impact. It felt like the second after a carriage accident, when the horse is screaming and the wheel is still spinning, and you're standing there, whole, breathing, knowing you almost weren't. When he walked onto Broad and Wall that morning, the air was already wrong. The street outside the Exchange wasn't movement, it was pressure. Bodies packed shoulder to shoulder, shoulders to chests, men shouting, faces tilted up toward the building like it was a wall, keeping out a flood and not a door. Hats jammed on heads, coats open, collars crooked, ties hanging like loosened nooses. Reporters swarmed like carrion birds who had politely arrived before their animal had actually died. Flashbulbs cracked, that violent white burst that burned a moment into plates. There was already sweat in the cold air, which meant panic was running hot. Benson didn't rush. He didn't walk like prey. He moved the way he always moved, decisive, controlled, clean. The way men who count other men's money learn to walk so no one feels invited to ask questions. But his pulse was up. Not with fear, with purpose. Under his jacket, inside his left breast pocket, her card sat folded neat, warm from him, warmer because of her. He could feel it there like a presence. He had not left it at home. He hadn't even considered it. He had slid it into his pocket the way a soldier shoulders a rifle, the way a priest takes a relic, the way a starving man tucks bread inside his coat. He had barely slept. He hadn't needed to. He was awake in a way he had never been awake in his life. Because she had said yes. God. God. He hadn't known the human body could run on that. Yes. He still felt it, not a word. A structure. Her yes had not been pretty. It had not been demure or shy or, let's see. She had given him a yes like a vow, like a line cut into stone, like she was throwing her flag into the ground between them and calling it theirs. I mean, yes, I will be in your future, and you will be in mine. That sentence had knocked something loose in his ribs. He had actually had to sit down when he read it. His knees had just gone. Like she'd cut the strings that held his spine to a wall and told his body it could stop bracing. He'd put his forehead down on his own desk, like she told him he could, and for one impossible, unguarded minute, Benson Pratt had actually let himself rest. No one saw. No one would ever see. It was his. The first rest of his adult life, and it hadn't come from sleep. It had come from her. Now, walking into the mouth of hell, he touched that pocket once with his fingertips. Alive. Stay alive. Her words had not been poetry. Her words had been orders. Orders he was keeping. Protect Harlan. Protect Stein. Cash, not promises. You are not allowed to go down with the building. You hear me? You are not allowed. He had listened. He'd done it. He had looked two boys in the eye. boys who'd been trying so hard to imitate hardness that they were almost shaking out of their skins, and pressed envelopes of cash into their hands and said, "Take this. Go home. Tell your mother to put it in her dress, not in a bank. If you come in tomorrow, I'll fire you. If anyone here fires you for leaving now, I will handle them personally." Harlan had choked. Stein had gone pale. Both had protested. He'd stared them down through both protests. They'd gone. He'd signed off 2 positions he'd been holding for clients who treated him like a tool and eaten an ugly loss in the name of liquidity and survival. One of those men had told him he was a coward. Benson had smiled like a knife and said, "If cowardice keeps me in a position to collect your debt Monday, I'll survive the insult." Now, stepping past the curb, he absorbed the noise. It wasn't like a normal market day. Normal market noise had a game in it: posture, greed, theatre. The energised crackle of men competing in a way that felt like sex and blood sport and worship of the self all braided together. This had no game. This was animal, raw, open, exposed nerve. Someone grabbed his sleeve before he cleared the steps. "Pratt, you seeing this? You seeing this tape?" The man's eyes were blown wide, a horse's eyes. Benson looked down at where the ticker runner from inside had torn off a length and was shoving it into hands. It stuttered, numbers clipped, jagged, brutal. Not a slide, a series of falls. Prices opening lower than men had believed possible last night, then falling through that like the floor wasn't there. "Margin calls coming in hot from every bank upstate," a voice snapped behind him. "They're pulling lines." "What?" someone else barked. They can. They can't do that. They'll tank the whole. They are." Shouting, cursing, shoving. One man lurched past him and actually gagged into his handkerchief like he might vomit. The bell hadn't even rung yet, and already, in his pocket, he could feel the faint warmth of her presence like a hand between his shoulder blades. "Breathe. That's your first job." He breathed. For the first time in his life, he did it on purpose. He inhaled steady, deep, down to the bottom of his lungs. He exhaled slow. His shoulders dropped a half-inch. Focus. The ones who can still think get to write what the world becomes after panic. That had always been true. That would stay true. "Fine," he thought. "Let me think." Inside, chaos erupted. It wasn't an opening bell. It was a detonation. The floor surged, voices cracked high. Men who'd slept fine for a decade and thought debt was a gentleman's hobby were suddenly begging like cheap gamblers at a backroom table. "Sell it! Sell it, God damn you!" "I can't. It won't clear. Get me Chicago. Get me... No, Chicago's frozen. Raise the call. Raise. We're getting slaughtered. The banks are supposed to be... Where the hell are the banks?" Benson did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. Men who were still pretending to be composed looked at him, just for a fraction of a second, as if authority had weight, and maybe they could borrow his. He moved through the frantic bodies and into his office off the main floor. Harlan's desk was empty. Stein's was empty. Good. His jacket came off. He rolled his sleeves slow, deliberate, revealing his forearms. He did this without thinking. He always did this before work went from civilized to surgery. Today it felt like sacrament. He called a bank and lied without guilt. "We're stable. We're liquid. You're extending terms because you are a sane institution and you understand the overhead of forcing a run on solid capital. You'll get your number Monday. Do not embarrass yourself today." He said it flat. He didn't ask. He informed. He bullied through calm. You learn something, standing next to the edge of ruin. Fear smells weakness, but it also bows to certainty. He gave them certainty until they took it. 3 calls like that. 4. He moved money like moving sandbags against a flood. Not to hold forever, just to hold long enough. Long enough to get out who mattered. Long enough to keep his own throat clear. Long enough to survive until close. That was the word in his head, pulsing with hers. Survive. Not win. Not destroy the enemy. Not be right. Survive. In his breast pocket, the heat of her yes burned like a coal. He swore once, quietly, without blasphemy. He never swore aloud, not really. But it pushed out of him now, low and reverent. Jesus, Christ as witness, I'm still here. At 11:20, a boy from another firm ran in, face blotchy, yet eyes wild, and grabbed Benson's arm, hard enough to bruise. "They're saying there was a jumper uptown," he blurted, voice shredded. The room went sharper. Someone sucked in a breath. Someone else muttered, "Christ," in a way that sounded more like disgust than prayer. Benson went very still. The boy's pupils were blown. His mouth shook. He was shaking like someone had lit a fuse under his skin. "Corner of 48th. Some investor. Wife screaming on the sidewalk. They're saying—" Benson cut him off. Voice even. "They're saying a lot of things today." The kid blinked, panting. "You calling me a liar?" "I'm telling you that repeating spectacle is the same as feeding it," Benson said, levelly. "Do you want more men at those windows? Or do you want fewer?" The kid's throat bobbed. Benson dropped his voice even lower. Intent. Surgical. "Then shut your mouth and do not carry that story to another man in this building. You swallow it. You take it home. You can tell it to your pillow tonight. You do not tell it here. Do you understand me?" A beat. Then the kid, breathing like he'd just run a mile, nodded. "Good," Benson said. "Go drink water, sit. If you pass out, I don't want to step over you." The kid stumbled out. The second he was gone, Benson let out the slowest exhale of his life. Because she'd been right. She'd warned him. They will say pretty things. They will promise. They will not hold the line. You will. So he held. He held like hell. He held not just the numbers, not just the money. He held the room. He walked his voice through panic like a steadying hand. He didn't soothe. He didn't coddle. He contained. Containment is compassion when the alternative is contagion. And all morning, in the middle of it, under it, coiling through it like a current in his blood, one steady fact repeated. She said yes. She said yes. She said yes. Every time the panic in the room rose like floodwater and lapped at his chest, he put a hand to his pocket, felt her there, and thought, "You said breathe. You asked me to keep breathing. You claimed my future. I am not allowed to die in public. I have orders. Orders felt clean. Orders felt simple. Orders felt like mercy. At 1:40, with the room hoarse, with half the phones dead from overuse and ashtrays overflowing with stress and fury, he felt it. Not physically, not like a hand. Deeper, interior, like a note struck in bone. Her. He stilled mid-sentence. "Tell him if he doesn't like the terms he can—" He caught himself, closed his mouth. The room blurred at the edges like a camera lens had twisted focus, sharpening only the space just in front of him. He closed his eyes. Barely. Just enough. And there she was. Not a hallucination. Not an image. Not quite a sound, a presence. Fervent. Alive. Furious like a prayer. "Benson, I'm here. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." His throat went tight so fast it almost hurt. He swallowed. Very quietly, quieter than a whisper, more breath than voice. He said, "Olivia." A few heads turned, hearing something, but not catching the word. He let his palms settle flat over his pocket and felt his pulse and, under his pulse, that impossible responding hum. He didn't need anything elaborate. He didn't need comfort, even. He didn't need to be told it would be okay. He just needed this. You are not alone in this room. And she gave him that. She fed him that like oxygen. The bell at the close was not a rescue. It was a knife tearing through fabric. The sound cut through men who had been white-knuckling composure and let humiliation actually surface. You could see it in the room, shoulders dropping, hands shaking, jaws tight, eyes gone flat. This is how men look when the thing they've built their worth on stops obeying. No one cheered, no one laughed. No one said, "Hell of a day," like they usually did, masculine and proud of the bruise. They were too stunned to posture. Numbers were still plummeting even after the close, in whispers, in private quotes, in promises made behind closed doors with trembling hands. Benson felt his stomach roll, not from fear, from anger, because this destruction, wasn't going to stay in this room. It was going to move outward, like waves. It was going to hit wives who would suddenly be told, "We can't keep the house." It was going to hit seamstresses, porters, clerks, boys who bagged flour, women who sold pears on corners. The pain would land on the backs of the people who'd never even touched a share. He pressed his palm flat to his pocket one more time to steady himself before the rage hardened into something sharp enough to cut him. "Enough," he whispered. To the room, to the day, to the lie, to the century, to himself, to her. It wasn't a plea, it was a vow. He stayed until the last phone went dead. Then he went home. He did not go to a club. He did not go to a bar. He did not go to find some poor woman to pour himself into and pretend it was release. He went home because his future was in his pocket and he had a letter to write. Olivia didn't move from the table for a long time after the hum faded. Her cheeks were still wet. Her fingers still tingled. Her heart, God, her heart felt like she'd been sprinting for miles. But in that exhaustion was something else. Something that sat right under her sternum and pulsed slow and deep and steady like a drum. Pride, not the vanity kind. The kind you feel when someone you love is out there in the dark, fighting, and you know not hope, not pray, not guess. No, they're holding the line. Her Benson. Her Benson. She didn't even fight the possessive now. It fit. It fit too well to argue with. She'd said yes. He'd said yes. You don't soft label a thing like that. You mark it. Her Benson was in that room, in that century, and he was not folding. He was saving kids. He was stealing cash out from under men who'd watch boys drown. He was letting men call him coward and eating it, because she'd told him pride isn't edible. He was listening to her. He was breathing because she'd told him to. The realization that he actually listened to her lit her up in a way she hadn't been ready for. Not heard, listened. People heard her all the time. People listened when she spoke about markets or models or probability curves. But being listened to as a directive for survival, a man with power letting her voice become the order he obeyed, that did something to her, something primitive, something devastating, something holy. It rewired what partner meant in her mind. It wasn't about flowers or cute surprises or constant compliments. It was this: I trust you with my life. That hit her harder than "you're beautiful" ever had. She finally exhaled, wiped under her eyes with both hands, let out a wild, shaky laugh that sounded kind of like relief and kind of like terror and kind of like joy. Then she looked down. The watch sat in front of her in its quiet little circle of metal and history, ticking neat, like nothing impossible had just happened. Under it, fresh paper. Her stomach flipped. Chapter 13. Debrief Olivia. It is late Thursday. I am home. I am alive, as ordered. I imagine you pacing. I imagine you chewing your lip. I imagine, inaccurately, I hope, you not eating those damned eggs. So I am writing before I even take off my shoes because I suspect if I do not report in, you will materialise in my office and drag me bodily out of it by the ear, and I have a reputation. First, I did as you said. Harlan and Stein are out with cash in their pockets. They protested. I lied and told them if they argued I'd be insulted. I expect both of them will attempt to come back tomorrow. I will physically block the door if I have to. I am not above that. Second, I did not die. Consider this your proof of compliance. Third, you were right. All of it. Your warning about Thursday was not dramatic. It was mere description. I have never seen panic take a room in a single breath like that. I have seen hunger, I have seen desperation, I have seen men claw at each other over dollars, over women, over pride. But this was a different animal. This was, forgive the phrase, structural failure. The bones didn't bend. They snapped. Here is what I did not expect, and you will kindly not mock me for sentiment. In the worst of it, I heard you. You said, breathe. I know how that sounds. I do not care. I heard you. I obeyed. It bought me seconds. The seconds bought me composure. The composure bought me leverage. The leverage got cash into the right hands. So, in the strictest possible accounting terms, you're already paying dividends. Fourth, someone ran in midday and tried to spread a story about a man jumping uptown. I shut it down. I don't know if the story was true. I know this. You told me to protect the men under me. Panic spreads faster than fire in a dry house, so I stepped on it. Hard. I think you would have approved. Now. I have questions for you. Because you asked me for honesty. I am asking you for the same. You said yes. You said yes like you were placing a marker on the table between us and daring the world to move it. You said yes like a vow. You said yes like you understood what I meant. You said yes like you wanted it. Olivia, I am choosing to believe you. I am walking forward now on that belief. That is not a small thing for me. I keep my feet where I can defend them. I am moving them to you. Do you understand what that means? So tell me this, and answer me like you expect me to build around it. Who are you? Outside of the parts men try to weaponize? I know you work in finance. I know you are young by my standards and already better than most of the men in your office by any standard. I know you like red on your mouth and camel on your shoulders, and you eat cereal out of a wine glass because you are feral and proud. I know your anger, and I know your tenderness, and I am humiliated to admit that in 2 days you have learned more about the way I break than anyone in my century. Tell me the small things. Tell me what song you put on when you're angry cleaning your kitchen. Tell me what food is comfort. Tell me what makes you laugh even when you don't want to. Tell me if you sleep on your side or your back. Yes, I am asking. If you are going to claim my future, I get to know how you lie in a bed. Tell me what scares you that isn't a man or money. Tell me what you look like, Olivia. I am building you in my mind, and I don't trust my own imagination. And tell me this last thing, and tell me like a knife. Who has hurt you? I'm not asking because I want to fix it. I'm asking because I'm now carrying the obligation of not repeating it, and I require itemized detail. Your turn. Benson P.S. Oh, sweetheart. You said that to me. No woman has said that to me since my mother, and even she stopped when I was still more boy than man. I will never forgive you for what that did to me. I am lying. I will think about it until I'm dead. P.P.S. If you have not mended that coat yet, I am prepared to cross 96 years of physics and do it myself while lecturing you about respectable presentation. Do not test me. P.P.P.S. You said, I'm yours too. I have read that line 12 times. I'm going to read it again now. I'm going to sleep with that paper under my pillow like a devout man with scripture. If that embarrasses you, good. We're even. Her laugh punched out of her, helpless. God, he was everything. He was everything she had not let herself want because everything had always sounded like a fantasy and fantasy had always tasted like disappointment on the tongue. He was asking her to tell him how she slept. Not as a prelude to sex, as a blueprint for safety, that short-circuited her, in real time. Like truth laid a hand on the back of her neck and said, breathe this in. This is what it feels like to be considered. Her body answered before her brain did. Her eyes burned. Her throat thickened. Her whole chest ached. It was all too much and just right at the same time. She sat back in her chair, pressed the heels of her hands to her eyes, and let out a sound that was half laugh, half quiet, shaking disbelief. She had thought the high point of her life would be getting taken seriously in a boardroom. She had thought victory would be the day a man twice her age, twice her salary, looked at her in front of other men and said, "No, listen to her." But this, being asked what song she cleaned to, as if her anger was a weather system worth respecting, that felt like being seen in a way that had nothing to do with usefulness. She dropped her hands and wiped her face. Then she took a breath so deep it hurt a little. And she started writing. Chapter 14, The Small Things That Matter. Benson. First, you lived. I can breathe. Thank you for obeying orders. I would absolutely have crossed time and dragged you out by the tie, so let's both be grateful it didn't come to that. Second, I am feral and proud is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about me. Third, you want small things? You get small things. All of them. You asked, you get answers. No flinching. You said you're building your life on this. I am not giving you cheap materials. Music when I'm mad cleaning. There's this one song that sounds like a woman spitting blood in a pretty way. Heavy drums, low female vocal. It's not from your time. I can't play it for you. I wish I could. I will describe it. It sounds like being betrayed and refusing to stay ruined. It sounds like, watch me rebuild sharper. I blast it. I scrub the sink like it insulted my mother. I move chairs to mop under them like I'm evicting ghosts. Comfort food, grilled cheese, obscenely buttered in a pan, with pickles on the side, and tomato soup. I eat it like a ritual. I don't answer calls during grilled cheese. Grilled cheese is church. What makes me laugh? Old women on the subway who talk to strangers like they're their granddaughters and roast them affectionately. My best friend Mia when she's being mean on purpose to cheer me up. People tripping a little and doing that. No, I meant to jog just now, fake run. I'm not proud, but you asked for honesty. Sleep, on my side, curled, one hand under the pillow, one under my cheek. I pull the blanket up over my mouth in the winter. Sometimes I still wake up reaching for my phone in the middle of the night like my body doesn't trust I'm allowed to rest. I hate that. I'm working on it. What scares me? Not men, not money. Losing the people I love slowly, the slow fade, the long grief, watching someone you love dissolve by inches. I watched that once. It almost killed me. Fast loss terrifies me less than slow loss. Fast loss is impact. Slow loss is erosion and it eats you alive in layers. Also, stupid thing, but deep water where I can't see the bottom. I hate not seeing what's coming. Now, you asked what I look like. I'm not going to soften this. You get the truth. I'm 23. I know that's young to you. To me, it feels both young and already used. I'm 5'7" barefoot. I have long dark hair, not black, but this brown that looks almost black at night and gets warm in the sun. I wear it down when I want to feel soft and up when I need to be sharp. My mouth is full. People comment on it. They say it like a compliment and like a threat. My eyes are brown. Not amber, not hazel, not gold-flecked. Just brown, honest, straightforward. The colour of coffee with nothing in it. I used to wish they were something more dramatic. I don't anymore. Brown makes people underestimate. I weaponize that. My face. Okay, this is uncomfortable, but you asked. I've been told I'm beautiful. Drop dead beautiful, actually, but that phrase always makes me feel like an ornament in a department store window. I know I'm pretty. I'm not shy about that. I have cheekbones that show even when I'm puffy from crying, which feels unfair and manipulative. My body. I run. I work. I carry my own groceries. I have legs I'm proud of and hips I didn't know what to do with at 16, and shoulders that look good in a tank top, and arms that get called surprisingly strong, by men who thought I was delicate, which I always enjoy. But if you're picturing some polished princess who always looks composed, no. I'm the girl with ink on her wrist and wind tangling her hair and mascara smudged at 1 a.m, sitting on the kitchen floor with cold pasta because I got home too tired to plate it. I'm the girl with the run in her tights because she caught it on a file cabinet. I'm the girl who carries flats in her bag because heels lie. And yeah, red on my mouth when I want to feel like I exist. Now. Last thing you asked. The knife. Who hurt me? You said you're not asking so you can fix it. You said you're asking so you don't repeat it. That matters to me. So I'll tell you. I have not had some cinematic heartbreak with violins and betrayal and catching somebody cheating in a doorway. My pain isn't theatrical like that. It's quieter. Which almost makes it worse. Men have tried to make me small since I was old enough to be looked at. That's the first hurt. You fall in love with someone at 16 and he says, I love that you're intense. And then at 19 he says, you're too much, and suddenly you're policing your own volume to keep him comfortable. You learn silently that love is conditional. They love you if you don't outshine them. They love you if you're impressive, but not that impressive. They love you if you're soft, but not that soft. Sexy, but not needy. Smart, but not threatening. Self-sufficient, but not cold. Emotional, but not crazy. So you contort, and you think that's normal. That's the kind of hurt that rewires you. And then there's this other thing. This one I haven't told anyone, so congratulations. You officially outrank every man I've ever spoken to. I watched someone I love disappear. Not physically, alive, still here, just fading inside themselves, cell by cell, memory by memory, slow grief, the kind you can't yell at, can't punch, can't negotiate with, the kind that teaches you that wanting time to stop is a useless wish. That's when I realised the universe does not take requests. That's when I started needing control. That's also when I stopped believing I'd ever find someone I could lean on, because needing someone felt like scheduling your own destruction. And then you happened. Now you tell me breathing is an order. Now you tell me to mend my coat. Now you ask me what song I clean to. Now you tell me, put your forehead down. And I hate how much I needed that. I hate that you just reached into a place in me I've boarded up and you sat there anyway, like you had a right. So there you go. That's the list. You wanted inventory. You have it. Your turn? And I don't mean markets. I mean Benson. How do you sleep? Don't lie. If you say fine, I will walk into 1929 and personally strangle you. Who do you have besides me? Anyone? Sister? Friend? Anyone who actually sees you? What scares you? And don't you dare write nothing. I will throw something. What makes you laugh when you don't want to? What do you look like? And you gave me orders. I'm giving you one. Ready? Here. Tonight you eat. I don't care if it's cold, if it's canned, if it's questionable. Protein. And you drink water, not whiskey. Water. Then you sleep with my yes under your pillow. That is not a suggestion. That is not something you push off because you have work. That's doctrine. Now I'm going to go mend my coat like a 1920s housewife, and you are going to feel smug through time about it. Don't get used to this. Olivia P.S. I laughed at feral and proud for 5 straight minutes. You're insufferable. P.P.S. If a man calls you a coward tomorrow, picture me standing behind you, chin up, arms crossed, looking at him like he's boring. Men panic when women look bored. Use that. P.P.P.S. I like that you swore. Do it again. She finished writing and her cheeks were burning and her pulse was ridiculous. Because what she'd just done, that was intimacy. That wasn't flirting anymore. That wasn't heat without cost. That was skin off. That was here, take the ugly parts, take the quiet parts, take the scared parts, and don't break them. That was marriage-level honesty without the ring, and somehow she was not ashamed of giving it, because he'd asked in a way that didn't feel like extraction. He hadn't said, "Show me so I know how to use you." He'd said, "Tell me so I know how not to hurt you." That was a different religion entirely. She slid the card under the watch. She pressed her palm down. It warmed under her hand like his body answering a call. Her eyes fluttered shut. And in that small hum in her bones, that shared frequency no one else in either century could hear, she felt his response come back like a promise laid in her mouth. "I'm here." She smiled, soft and shaking. "I know," she whispered. Then, because the universe is cruel but not always heartless, because time is violent but sometimes merciful, because love sometimes gets what it demands, the watch pulsed once under her palm, heat blossomed, and another page slid forward from a century away. Chapter 15. His turn. Olivia. You give orders very well. I'm eating as I write this. There is a plate of cold roast beef and half a heel of bread on my desk, and a glass of water, yes, water, because apparently I'm now a man who takes instruction from a woman in the future. If any of my competitors knew this, they would laugh until they choked. They would not laugh long. You asked me not to lie. I'll try. How I sleep. Poorly. Short. I sit in this chair and close my eyes and call that rest. I do not undress fully most nights because I'm always calculating the odds I will need to move. I have not slept on my stomach since I was a boy, and my father died, and every sound in the house felt like a threat. It is difficult to sleep flat on your back when you train yourself to be ready to stand in an instant, so I sleep on my side, in this chair, head down, arms folded like I am at war with myself. I have not slept in a bed with another warm body in it in longer than I care to admit. I would like to. There. I said it. I expect a medal. Who I have besides you, my sister, Eleanor, sharp as a needle, softer than she lets anyone know, married to a man who does not deserve her and never will. She is the only person in this city who has ever made me laugh by telling me to go to hell. She knows a version of me, not all. You now outrank her. I expect you to be smug about that. Harlan and Stein. They're boys, but they look at me like I am something between a map and a wall. I do not count them as having me, because men do not lean on walls. They hide behind them. That is different. There used to be a man named Green who sat across a table from me for years and played poker with my patience and believed I had a soul worth negotiating with. He moved to Chicago in 1927 and wrote twice after, and then stopped. I assume the silence means his wife found the letters and had opinions. That's it. There is no one else. Not in the way that matters. Until you. What scares me, you said no lying. Helplessness, not danger. I do not fear pain. Pain I can price. Humiliation I can survive, apparently, now that you've reframed it. But helplessness, being trapped in a moment where I can see the hit coming and cannot move the body in front of it. That terror tastes like metal. I watched my father cough his life out slow over a winter. I was 12. I could do nothing about it. I stood in the doorway and watched my mother pretend she wasn't breaking because she thought my sister and I would break if she did. I remember thinking, give it to me, I'll carry it, I'll do it, I'll take it. Just get off her, get off him, hurt me instead. And nothing in the room listened. That was the first time I understood that want, by itself, has no teeth. I have hated helplessness ever since. It is the only thing I have trouble not naming panic. You said slow grief is worse than impact. I believe you. What makes me laugh when I don't want to? Eleanor insulting me. The face Harlan makes when he's trying to pretend he understands a concept I just explained and absolutely does not. Watching men with too much money get told no by women who have already decided someone richer is in the room. There is a secretary on the 4th floor who calls one of the senior partners darling in a tone so icy it should qualify as assault. Every time she does it, I have to bite the inside of my cheek. What I look like? All right. Brace yourself for disappointment. I am 6 feet even, broad in the shoulders, not by vanity but by work. I still move crates when I need to. I am built like a man who grew up hauling instead of being handed. My hands are work hands. There are calluses at the bases of my fingers that never really fade. You said you felt my hand. You know what I mean. Hair dark, not black. Brown that goes nearly black when I haven't seen sunlight in days. I keep it short because anything else gets in my eyes when I'm bent over a ledger. My jaw, you will tell me if this sounds arrogant. I have been told I look severe. My mouth does not sit soft unless I force it. My eyes are brown, dark. People call them black sometimes because brown sounds too kind for me. You said your eyes are coffee with nothing in it. Mine are the bottom of the pot after it's been left on heat too long. I have a scar along my left forearm from when I was 19 and did something stupid with a loose cable and almost lost my hand. I have a small white line under my bottom lip where a man in a hat swung at me in 22 and didn't land clean. I have a habit of cracking my knuckles when I am thinking. I am told this is menacing. I do not do it on purpose. I do not smile easily. I will tell you this so you are prepared. If you ever see me smile without restraint, you are the reason. Understand that. Mark it down. That is your doing, no one else's. Now I'm going to tell you something I'm not proud of, but you said no lying. The way you described yourself almost put me on my knees. I tried to read it clinically. I failed. You said hips I didn't know what to do with at 16, and I had to stand up and walk to the window. You said red on my mouth when I want to feel like I exist, and I think I made a sound that would have scandalized polite company. You said ink on my wrist and wind tangling my hair, and I swear to you I could see you, standing in some future I cannot touch, looking like sin and salvation, and work and warmth, and I have never in my life wanted to put my hands on someone so carefully. Do you understand that? Carefully. Not to consume, to learn, to map, to claim in the way that means mine to protect, not mine to own. You said men have tried to make you small since 16. If any man in your century ever tries again, you will tell me his name and I will invent a way to haunt him. You said you watched someone fade. I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. You said you started needing control then. I understand you. I'm not asking you to put it down. I'm asking you to let me hold it with you sometimes, so your hands stop bleeding. You told me to eat and drink water and sleep with your yes under my pillow. I am doing all 3. I have done 2 already. The 3rd happens when I stop writing. Which brings me to this. Olivia, listen to me. Listen like it's an order. You told me, that's home, that's yours. You get to keep that. No one has ever given me home. No one has ever told me, this is yours and you don't have to earn it every second. You did. So I am telling you back, and I am carving this into both our bones right now so neither timeline can take it. You are mine, not as possession, as vow, as axis, as future, as obligation I welcome, as the first and only place I will ever put my head down without shame. And I am yours. You do not apologize for needing me. You do not apologize for asking me to breathe. You do not apologize for telling me to eat like I'm some idiot who forgets I am mortal. You do not apologize for throwing orders at me across a century like you can grab me by the jaw. You can. God help me, you can. That is what yes means. We agreed. Now. Sleep. You. I mean you. Do not argue. I will know. Benson P.S. I laughed out loud at your men panic when women look bored. I intend to weaponize this at first opportunity. P.P.S. Grilled cheese with pickles is barbaric. I will allow it because it is you. PPPS. You mending the coat is not 1920s housewife. It is you letting yourself be taken care of by proxy. Let it happen. This is me darning your sleeve with my teeth clenched. You will accept it. She read it with a hand over her mouth. She read it shaking. She read it with this deep, aching, impossible warmth rolling through her like a slow wave that wouldn't stop. He slept in a chair, folded, armed, ready to bolt. Like rest was an ambush he had to defend against. Her throat went tight. Her eyes burned. Her chest hurt. I'll fix that, she whispered, palms pressed flat to the table. I swear to God, Benson, I will fix that. You're never sleeping in a chair again if I get my way. He had Eleanor. He had boys who thought he was a wall. He had no one who held him. Until now. He had said helplessness was his fear. He had told her about watching his father fade. He had told her about wanting to take the pain and being unable to. She pressed her fist to her sternum to hold herself together. Then, the section about what he looked like. All that darkness, all that structure, all that quiet physical power wrapped in self-control. And the line that detonated in her body like heat poured directly into her bloodstream. I have never in my life wanted to put my hands on someone so carefully. Carefully! Her breath trembled out of her like a gasp. Carefully. Not greed, not conquest, not hunger first. Care. No man had ever said that to her. No man had even framed touch like that. Men in her century romanticized obsession, not reverence. They worshipped possession, not stewardship. Carefully. Her whole body answered. Her whole body said yes so hard her knees went weak, and she had to sit back, dizzy. Then she hit the vow. You are mine, not as possession, as vow. Her lungs actually forgot how to work for a second. And then, and I am yours. Her vision just blurred, flooded, useless. Okay, she whispered, laughing and crying at the same time like a crazy person alone in her apartment. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. We're doing this. We're actually doing this. Because there was no line left between them that hadn't already been crossed and burned. They weren't circling. They weren't negotiating. They weren't testing. They had already chosen. Across 96 years, with nothing but ink and touch and breath and unbearable honesty, they had already chosen. And she knew, down in a place she never let anyone near, that if anything ever tried to take him from her, she would set timelines on fire before she let it. Her smile went fierce. Her eyes were still wet. She pressed her palm over the watch. Sleep, she whispered, soft, low, a command and a prayer. Right now. Lie back. Close your eyes. Sleep with my yes under your pillow. I've got you, I've got you, I've got you. Her apartment settled around her. The city hummed outside like nothing had changed. But somewhere in 1929, in a narrow room lit by a dim lamp, a man who had built his life on vigilance leaned back, slid a folded card with her handwriting under his pillow, closed his eyes on purpose, and, for the first time since he was 12 years old, let his body fall asleep without guarding itself. Because she told him to. Because he trusted her. Because in a world about to split its own spine, Benson Pratt was no longer alone. And in a world that kept telling her she was too much, Olivia Sinclair had just become the centre of gravity for a man history would have eaten. Time thought it was in charge. Time was wrong. Time had just met defiance. Time had just met devotion. Time had just met two people who had already decided to belong to each other. And time, arrogant, unbending, undefeated time, would learn what it meant to be outmatched. Chapter 16. Fault line. Weekend Friday came for both of them like a bruise being pressed. For Benson, October 25th, 1929 wasn't a day. It was a continuation, the same panic with the volume turned up. But now the panic had a smell, Sweat and metal and ink burned too hot in cheap lamps. Thursday had been a shock. Friday was rot. For Olivia, October 30th, 2025 was louder than usual, even though nobody else in her whole world knew why. New York was just doing New York. Coffee shops steaming up their windows. People tapping crosswalk buttons that don't actually work. A woman yelling on FaceTime about betrayal at full volume while walking past a priest. All normal. Except it wasn't normal, because she could feel him like a heartbeat under the skin of the day. He'd slept. That alone felt like a miracle. She'd felt him fall under, not fall apart. That difference mattered, with her name under his cheek like a safeguard. She'd woken up in 2025 at 4:17 a.m. with this bizarre, overwhelming calm, like something in her had been keeping watch and finally let go. She'd never felt anything like it, not with men she'd kissed, not with men who swore they had her, not with anyone. She made eggs because he told her to, muttering the whole time like he could hear. Smug. You're smug. You're so smug. I hope you know I'm only doing this so you don't get to lecture me. And then she actually sat down and ate them. Fork, plate, protein. It felt oddly intimate. Like they were sharing breakfast, separated by almost a century and one table. She showered. She pulled on dark jeans and a black turtleneck because she felt like a weapon and wanted to dress like one. Camel coat, red mouth, hair half up, the rest loose. She fixed the torn lining of her wrist, hand-stitched, clumsy, uneven, and caught herself smiling like an idiot because she knew he'd approve. She caught her reflection before she left for work and didn't see a woman waiting for love. She saw a woman already claimed, already chosen, already dangerous because of it. When she hit the sidewalk, cold air snapped at her face like honesty. She let it clear her. She kept the watch in her pocket like a secret heartbeat and walked to the subway with the arrogance of someone who belongs somewhere. Because now she did, not just in her century, in the world, in somebody's world. That changes the way your spine sits. That changes everything. Benson hit the street at 7:30 sharp in a suit he hadn't had time to press, tie unknotted and hanging around his collar like a throat bandage, jaw already tight. Thursday had taught the city panic. Friday taught it rage. You could see the shift. Thursday's faces had been white around the mouth, eyes wide. Scared men. Drowning men. Friday's faces had gone mean. There's something that happens in a man when he realizes the thing he worshipped won't save him. He either falls apart or he gets violent. Some of them had fallen apart yesterday. Today, the violent ones showed up. The exchange didn't feel like a temple anymore. It felt like an alley before a knife fight. You could hear it, nastier, lower, less desperate and more feral. You told me. I never said. You said 60. I said if. God damn you, I said if. You ruined me and I swear I will drag you into the street. Benson wasn't the only one who hadn't slept properly in weeks. He was the only one who looked like he wasn't about to break. That reputation bought him a radius. Men let him pass. He was aware of glances. Pratt's here. Pratt came back. Pratt's still standing. That means it's survivable, right? He didn't want the worship. He didn't trust it. But he'd use it, because she'd told him to. Protect your people. Survive. He'd already made his choices. Cash out. Get his boys out. Eat insult. Keep oxygen. Now it was endurance. Keep the walls up until the wave breaks. He'd tucked last night's answer from her, that long, brutal, gorgeous list of herself, into his inside pocket and felt it there now against his ribs, warm. He'd read it 5 times before dawn. He'd had to put the paper down twice just to breathe. She'd told him how she slept. Curled. Hand under cheek. Blanket up. He hadn't known a description could make a man feel protective and aroused and reverent all at once. Protective because the image of her curled up alone with a phone still in reach like she didn't trust rest had lit a righteous violence in him that bordered on holy. Aroused because of course he'd pictured her in that bed, hair loose, mouth soft, skin warm, and felt his body answer like blood waking up. Reverent because that was a private detail, and she had just hand-delivered it and said, "This is mine. I'm letting you in. Don't break it." Then she'd told him about fear, slow grief, erosion. He'd had to stand up and put the heel of his hand against his mouth because his throat had gone too tight to breathe. He'd whispered, hoarse to the MP, "Empty room. I'm sorry, sweetheart." And the word sweetheart had come out without permission, without calculation, just out of his body like his chest had said, "I'm keeping this one," and that was that. Then she'd told him what she looked like, and he'd actually cursed, out loud, and left the room, and paced like an animal that suddenly understood hunger. Her hair, her mouth, the proud legs, the shoulders that looked good in a tank top, the brown eyes she used like a weapon. He'd leaned both palms against the window frame and inhaled like he'd been punched. And when she got to this part, "I'm the girl with mascara smudged at 1 a.m, sitting on the kitchen floor with cold pasta because I got home too tired to plate it." He had to sit down because suddenly, violently, he wanted to be there in that 1 a.m. kitchen more than he'd ever wanted anything in his life. Not to fix her, not to lecture her, not to tell her she was working too hard, to sit on the goddamn floor next to her and put his thigh against hers and take the fork from her hand and feed her and say, "Eat." And then kiss the corner of her mouth and say, "Now sleep." That was it. That was the fantasy. Not some fevered tangle of limbs on silk sheets, not some cinematic slow undress while jazz played. The floor, the pasta, her face tired. Him there. He'd read that line and thought, that's the rest of my life. That, right there. And he'd scared himself with the clarity. Now, Friday, in a room full of men who thought money was God and God had just gone missing, Benson held that version of a future like a weapon. You said yes, you said yes, you said yes. He could survive anything with that in his pocket. By 10, it was already obvious. This wasn't going to be fixed today. They'd whispered about stabilisation, bulge banks pledging capital, public displays of confidence like circus tricks in front of the press. And yes, that did slow a few collapses. For an hour, maybe 2. But fear doesn't care about press releases. Fear doesn't negotiate. He watched 3 separate men try to bluff and then just deflate right in front of him. Shoulders sag, mouths slack, eyes gone flat, like all the story was drained out. He sent 2 of them water without comment. He didn't offer pity. Pity makes pride spit. Water is neutral. At 12:30, a senior partner from a competing firm slipped into Benson's doorway and shut the door behind him without asking. Benson clocked 3 things instantly: the tremor in the man's left hand, the sheen of sweat at his hairline, and the way his mouth was trying to hold itself together and failing. "Pratt," the man said, We're hearing you liquidated positions at a loss yesterday." He tried to make it sound like accusation, and it came out envy. "Correct," Benson said calmly. The man swallowed. "And you sent boys home with cash?" "Yes," Benson said. "That's..." The man's voice cracked. "That's not protocol." "No," Benson said. "That's humanity." The man flinched like the word stung. He swallowed again. His throat bobbed. "You think this stops?" Benson didn't answer right away. He thought of Olivia's handwriting. He thought of, "It's not a bad day, it's an unravelling." He thought of the way she'd said, I want you breathing on Friday like it was a line in a contract with God. He thought of Harlan's shaking hands taking that envelope. He thought of his father coughing until winter was a weapon. He thought of helplessness and how he refused it now. Finally, he said, voice low, no. The other man's face caved and rebuilt in real time. He looked older instantly, tired, human. What do we do? He whispered. Benson almost laughed. Almost. Because this is what the street did. Worshipped men like him when they could fix things, hated them when they couldn't, and then, when the truth came and the water rose, came knocking, shaking, asking for a spine. An old Benson, even 3 days ago, would have given strategy. He would have offered tactical damage control, numbers, leverage, sequencing. You do X, you short Y, you call Z, and pretend you're calm. Clean. Professional. Bloodless. But Olivia had put her hand on his and said, protect your people. He heard her voice in his head now like a second conscience. So he answered like her. You stop pretending, Benson said. The man blinked. You tell your men the truth so they don't make promises to wives you can't keep, Benson went on, steady. You get cash into the hands of boys who live paycheck to paycheck, and you do it now before the banks freeze. You find the ones who think they can bluff through this with pride, and you pull them into a room and you say, you can either feed your family or you can feed your ego. Pick. You don't let them choose ego. You shame them out of it if you have to. You get ready to be called weak. You say, fine. And then you survive long enough to still have a firm on Monday. That's what you do. The man stared. Then, Jesus, Pratt. Benson lifted a brow. He's busy. The man laughed, sharp and ugly, and almost hysterical. Then, to Benson's surprise, he wiped at his face with the heel of his hand. God damn you, he muttered. You're right. Yes, Benson said mildly. I often am. It's a curse. The other man barked a laugh that sounded startled, almost grateful. He straightened. He breathed. All right, he said. All right. When he left, Benson leaned back in his chair and let out a slow, controlled exhale. Not pride, not relief. Something darker, heavier. Responsibility. He had not asked to be anyone's proof of possibility. He'd just become it. And she had put that inside him. Olivia, he thought. And it wasn't prayer and it wasn't plea. It was possession and gratitude and ache all braided together. Olivia. His Olivia. Yeah, his. He'd said it. She'd said it. That belonged to both of them now. At 2:25 lunch, Mia texted her. MIA. Status report. Still in love with your Depression-era husband? Olivia. He's not Depression-era yet. Stop. MIA. Sorry. Pre-Depression-era husband. Olivia. Shut up. MIA. What's he doing today? Olivia. Standing between hell and the kids under him and telling hell to shut up for 5 minutes so they can get out alive. MIA. Okay, but are you ovulating because that sentence is a war crime? Olivia almost choked on her water. Her hands shook with adrenaline and relief, and this quiet, humming awe she couldn't shake. She texted back, I said yes. Mia responded in under a second. Mia. JFC Cat. Mia. To what? Mia. Wait, did you just agree to marry the 1920s? Maya. Answer your phone. I'm calling you. Are you in a vent? The phone lit up with Mia's face, and Olivia ducked into a stairwell to answer because she was not going to explain timeline-bending soul bonding in the middle of the bullpen. Mia didn't even say hello. Clarify, she demanded. Olivia pressed her back to the cinder-block wall and smiled helplessly. She felt like light. She felt like blood. He asked, she whispered, and had to swallow before she could keep talking. He asked if he could build his future around me. Mia went silent so hard it made static crackle. Oh, she said softly after a beat. Oh, baby. Olivia's throat went tight. And I said yes. Mia made a noise Olivia had never heard come out of her before, something like a laugh that broke halfway and reassembled as a sob. "Oh, baby," she repeated, gentler now. Okay, yeah. Okay." Olivia wiped under her eye with the pad of her thumb and laughed on a shaky breath. "Is this insane?" "Oh, absolutely," Mia said. "Completely. Full cartoon. Hallucination level. Unsafe for work." She paused. "It's also the realest thing I've ever heard you say." That hit. Hard. Olivia shut her eyes. There was a long quiet. Mia's voice softened. "He's okay?" Olivia let out a breath. "For now." Mia caught that "for now" like a professional. "Ouch." "Yeah," Olivia whispered. "What happens?" Mia asked carefully. "If he's not?" Olivia swallowed. The answer was a blade. It had been sitting behind her heart since last night, sharp and waiting. "If he's not," Olivia said quietly, "I burn the world down." Mia didn't laugh. Mia didn't say dramatic. Mia didn't say relax. Mia said, just as soft, "Okay." "I'll bring matches," that almost wrecked her. She had to laugh just to keep from crying. "You're psycho." "I am supportive," Mia corrected. "Also, FYI, you're buying brunch for the rest of my life because my best friend is in a cross-period situationship with an emotionally competent capitalist, and that's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me personally." Olivia barked out a wet laugh. "Emotionally competent is generous." "Babe," Mia said, "he asked you how you sleep." That man is already better than 99% of living males in this time zone. Olivia covered her eyes with her hand and grinned so hard her face hurt. "Okay, I have to go back, or they'll assume I died." "Go," Mia said, "and text me if your time travel fiancé writes back." MIA. But Mia had already hung up. Time travel fiancé. Olivia pressed the heel of her palm to her mouth to muffle the hysterical sound that tried to claw out of her, then pulled herself together and went back to her desk with her heart running too fast. Her body couldn't tell the difference between panic and love anymore. That scared her, that thrilled her, both at once. Friday close in 1929 wasn't triumph. It wasn't even peace. It was exhaustion wearing a suit. The market didn't recover. It just stopped screaming, the way someone stops screaming when they lose their voice. Silence after chaos isn't quiet. It's shock. Men moved like ghosts. The partners upstairs were already drafting statements for the press like prayers, self-soothing with phrases like confidence and temporary and healthy correction, all of which were lies, and all of which they would say anyway because creed is sometimes more important to them than truth. Benson didn't listen. He didn't care. He did one last sweep of the floor like a commander clearing a battlefield, checking for bodies left in the mud. Nobody was face down. Good. He gave short, simple instructions to two boys who looked like they might collapse on the sidewalk. "Go home," he said. "If you touch a bottle tonight, eat meat first. I want you coherent tomorrow. Don't make me come find you." They nodded, jerky. You could see the way his voice stabilized them. You could see the way they clung to command, because command is a hand on the back of the neck, steady, guiding. He hadn't realized before this week that his steadiness could be that for other people. It humbled him in a way that felt like pressure in the chest. By the time he reached his office, his body hurt. Veins buzzing, jaw tight, shoulders locked, every muscle wired. He shut the door, turned the lock, exhaled, and set the watch on his desk like an altar. "Olivia," he said, into the empty room, and the word wasn't a call, it was an exhale. It was his body letting itself speak her name like a rite. He sat. He didn't take off his jacket. He didn't loosen his collar. He didn't wash his face or pour a drink or check a number. He reached for paper. Chapter 17. Aftershocks. Olivia. "It's not over, but I'm still standing. I ate meat, bread, water. No whiskey. I can hear you yelling. You told me, protect your people. Cash, not promises. Pride is not edible. I did it. Today something happened I've never seen in my world. Men asked me what to do. Not as performance, as plea. They looked at me like I had a way out they could live through. And I realised I did, because of you. Your words came out of my mouth and changed what men with money did. That money will move differently now. People will eat because of sentences you wrote 96 years in the future. You've already left fingerprints on 1929. I thought you should know. You said yes. I'm holding that like a hot coal. If it goes out, I go cold in places that don't come back. You said, you're mine too. You don't understand what that did. You think you do, you don't. Let me be clear. It undid me. Not lust, not romance. Undid. The stitches I've used to keep myself together for 15 years snapped. Quiet, one by one. I didn't fall apart. I fell into you. I've never had anywhere to fall. Now I do. Respect that. Understand the size of this. Don't make me come across time and take your face in my hand and make you hold eye contact. You asked who hurt me. My father died slow when I was 12. You know slow grief. My mother broke quietly, which taught me love is duty and duty is silence. I decided my job was to keep everyone else from drowning, and I never stopped. Women after that wanted what I could provide, not what I could feel. They liked my steadiness, my competence, my ability to walk in and make the problem leave. No one, not one, ever said, put your head down, rest here until you. Now mundane things, since you asked. When I'm angry, I don't play music. Radio is noise, not bone. Bone quiets with ink on paper, comfort food, rare roast beef from Paper and Company, good bread, mustard with bite, fresh pickles. Yes, it's pickles. Your grilled cheese is barbaric. We're even. What makes me laugh? My sister swearing. A secretary calling a banker darling, like a knife. You saying you're in so much trouble. Like trouble isn't already wearing my tie. Sleep. I pass out, curled in a chair on my left side because my right shoulder knots. I haven't laid flat in a bed in weeks. Tonight, because you told me to, I will. I'm telling you so you can picture it. What scares me besides helplessness? That I could soften and then be punished for it. That fear is new. That fear is you. Before you, I never allowed softness. Now that you've given it to me, I'm terrified of losing it. Congratulations. You've made me vulnerable. I hope you're pleased. People say I look hard, cold, too serious. You get told too much. We match. Now you're going to do 3 things for me, and I'm not pretending I'm asking. Lock your door. Don't tell me I always do. Tell me I did. Text Mia and say, home, every night. If she doesn't answer, you tell me. I will invent time travel and pull her out of danger for you. Sleep, not phone scrolling half death. Sleep, on your side, hand under your cheek, blanket up, my yes under your pillow, my hand at the back of your neck, my voice in your ear. Breathe. Her laugh broke out so hard she had to grab the counter. He was impossible. He was insufferable. He was already hers. She adored him so much it scared her. She read the part about, you've already left fingerprints on 1929, and she had to sit down. That wasn't romance. That was proof. People would eat tonight in 1929 because she told him, across almost a century, give them cash now. Harlan's mother had money in her dress because of her. Her chest hurt. Her hands shook. She had never felt powerful in a way that felt clean until now. Then she hit the part that gutted her. I've never had anywhere to fall. Now I do. Her eyes flooded. She pressed her fist to her sternum and breathed through it. He was scared of softness now. Because of her. Because he wanted it. Because he'd had 1 second of rest, his head down in her, and now he was terrified someone would rip that away. Not happening. she whispered into her empty apartment, low and dangerous. "Not happening, Benson. I swear to God, I'll tear holes in history before I let anyone take that from you." Then she hit his 3 things. Lock your door. Text Mia. Home. Sleep. It wasn't control. It was care shaped like an order. She felt that all the way down. Olivia grinned. She crossed the apartment, locked the deadbolt and the chain. Not because she never did, but because he'd told her to, and doing it felt like letting him put a hand between her shoulders and settle her. She came back, sat, laid both hands over the watch. "Done," she whispered. "Door's locked," Mia answered. "And I'm going to sleep how you said." You and heat pulsed under her palms. Not heat, exactly. Presence. His mouth wasn't on her, but she felt breath at the back of her neck, low and claiming. Her whole body lit up like someone struck a match along her spine. Her eyes squeezed shut, her face flushed hot. Her breath jumped. Warmth again, just a brush down her back. Her breath hitched. A sound escaped her she had never made in her life. He was going to ruin her, and she was going to let him, gladly, without apology, because yes, she was his, and yes, he was hers, and maybe was already ash. That night, New York kept moving. Cars hissed along wet streets. A trumpet bled 3 floors down. Somewhere in Brooklyn, 2 people fought and then forgave. In a 12th floor apartment, Olivia curled on her side, hand under her cheek. This time, the door was locked. Mia had texted back, "Home too. Night menace." Her phone was dark. His yes was under her pillow. She let herself feel him behind her, palm steady on the back of her neck, voice only she could hear. Breathe. She did. And for the first time in years, she fell asleep without bracing for impact. Across nearly a century, Benson did something he hadn't done in weeks. He lay down. Not in a chair. In his bed. Shirt open at the throat, tie on the floor, jaw no longer stone. Her yes under his pillow, under his cheek. Forehead resting where she told him to rest. He closed his eyes, exhaled. Let go. His last thought wasn't the market. It was this, mine. Then, softer. Hers. Then he slept. Real sleep. The kind you only get when you are no longer alone. Time watched. 2 people, 96 years apart, had just made a promise. Not wish. Not fantasy. Promise. And promises like that don't bend. They break timelines.